Welcome to Pensar Basketball Live. The Toronto Raptors lose another one, and with this loss, they clinch the sixth worst record in the NBA, therefore clinching also their sixth odds of getting or keeping their lottery pick, which is currently owed to the San Antonio Spurs. We can talk about the odds. We can talk about whether or not the Raptors want this pick in the first place. We can talk about, what the likely scenarios are. At some point in this video, about 5 minutes from now, after we're done talking a little bit about this game, I'm going to flash my mock draft as we continue to talk about this game. But let's take a look at what happened. And what happened was a lot of RJ Barrett. This was probably among the top 10 most frustrating games for me this year. I know that sounds a little bit crazy because there's nothing to play for at this point. And the Heat, on the other hand, have everything to play for. But the Raptors were relatively healthy tonight. They had Jakob Poeltl out, and they had Scottie Barnes out. But other than that, pretty much everyone who could play played. And to get this type of performance from your supporting guys, specifically Williams and Trent Jr. and Malik Williams, I am willing to say with some authority that Malik Williams is the worst player in NBA history. Is that crazy to say? He is so bad. Like, he is so ridiculously bad. There was a stretch in the third quarter where he literally single-handedly on 3 back-to-back possessions offensively and defensively pretty much cost you this entire game. And I'm not saying cost you the game like there was any chance you were ever going to win this game in the first place, but it's very hard to see a team play as hard as they were playing. I mean, Kelly Olynyk had some hard moments. Grady Dick played hard for the most part. RJ Barrett played his guts out, and you could see on the bench that he was a little bit frustrated, by the stint where he was out. And I mean, you're still playing for something. You're playing for pride, okay? Kelly Olynyk, I mean, for the most part, not the greatest game. Just in terms of point of attack defense, the Raptors were atrocious tonight. Another so-so game for Ochai Agbaji. Negative 28 does not look good, but I think negative 28 is largely because his minutes were matched up so much with Jaime Jaquez. He's literally the opposite end of Jaime Jaquez on the rotation chart. Jaime was amazing tonight. He had 20 points and 9 assists. He got to the center of the floor consistently. The Heat basically had the simplest game plan I've ever seen, right? You're going to put one defender on RJ. He's going to shed that defender. And on the other end, you're going to put your your drivers and your attackers and your paint penetrators, and you're basically going to find open threes. And that's what the Heat did. I mean, they found Nikola Jovic open for 4 threes. Tyler Hero had 3 threes. Martin Adebayo, who's shooting threes now, and pretty well, actually. Jimmy Butler went 2 for 2 from 3, underrated, sort of storyline this year. So the Heat took 41 threes. The Raptors took 31 threes. The Heat made 17. The Raptors made 10. That's a 7-point difference. That's a pretty big differential there. In terms of the shots they got versus the shots you got. I mean, 7 threes is 21 points, right? And then on the other end, I mean, the Heat also got 6. They also got 9 more shot attempts. I think that's pretty much the game. I think Emmanuel quickly started the game well. I think Bruce Brown played pretty well. Jordan Nwora did not play this game. Interesting to see Jalen McDaniels get his DMP-CD in a game like this, right? Nothing to play for. I think Javon Freeman-Liberty had a tough game for the most part. I think he was a little sloppy with the ball. But nothing tonight compares to the abysmal, Malik Williams. Nothing. Like, nothing I have seen from this guy over the last 2 weeks makes me think that he's an NBA player. Everything I have seen from him makes me think he might be the worst player I've ever seen in my life. So, I mean, we're talking Aaron Gray levels. We're talking rest in peace Eric Montross levels. Like, I've seen some pretty shit players in Raptors history, like some really, really bad ones, like some big 7-footer out there in the Shaquille O'Neal dominated. Like, I have never seen a player this bad. Is that cruel? Is that cruel to say? I don't think Jalen Harris was this bad. I don't even think David Johnson was this bad. What does he do apart from be 7 feet tall and occasionally tip a shot? Like, he is clueless on the basketball court. I don't get it. Maybe his sole purpose of being on the Raptors is basically to make Jalen McDaniels feel a little less horrible about how bad he is at basketball. I have no idea. Complaining about the G League 10-day guy contract seems weak. Dude, it would seem weak if he didn't play 19 minutes. Okay. And I'll tell you right now, like, the Raptors had a chance to make this kind of close, which is encouraging. And you kind of waste a somewhat like underrated RJ performance. Like I think he played really well. Um, I'm sorry. There's a way to be bad, like missing shots. The Gary Trent Jr. tonight was unwatchably bad. Defensively, offensively, point of attack, screen setting, everything was just terrible. Playmaking, decision making, full court, half court, everything sucked. Shot making, shooting, everything sucked for Gary Trent Jr., right? It was bad. It was bad. It still felt like he was trying. With Malik and with Jalen, sometimes it's like, do these guys know like how close they are to China right now? Like, I feel like Darko Rajakovic in the locker room is going to hand these guys a Chinese English dictionary because, frankly, it is embarrassing how bad. Like, you will never see him again after Sunday. Let it go, bro. Don't tell me to let it go. Start your own fucking show. If you want to complain about somebody else, I'm sorry. The guy played 19 minutes and he was excruciatingly bad. Okay, and I feel like there are about 150 players in the world that you could have signed to a 10-day who are better than him. So yeah, I'm complaining. Jeez. Okay. Okay. Overall, I think the Heat, they're going to be a tough out for somebody in the first round, but if they draw, I'm not really enamored with the teams at the top of the East right now. Other than Boston, who are kind of sputtering to the finish line, they have had nothing to play for weeks now. I don't give a fuck why we signed him. Okay, I really thought Scottie would have played these last two games, especially in Florida. Honestly, man, I thought he would play. I thought he would play Sunday. I had a feeling like he might play Sunday. He's been feeling better. He's been doing shoot arounds, whatever. And I was like, shoot, there's really nothing to tank for at this point. The Raptors have locked into sixth. Would it be the worst thing in the world to play spoiler and just give yourself this one game to just, play for something, end the season on something strong instead of playing the season out on 19 minutes for Malik Williams? I'm sorry. I don't get why he's playing. I really don't. Like, I don't even give a fuck. Like, I don't fucking care. It just makes me mad because at this point, I'd rather just play literally anybody. I would rather play Jalen McDaniels. He's on contract next year and he's 6'9" and he's not as bad and he's so bad. Holy crap. People want to talk about, how good is RJ, how good's IQ, how good are Grady or whatever. Bro, I don't care how good you are. When you play players this bad, it won't matter. It doesn't matter what you do. If Malik Williams was on the court with Luka Doncic, he wouldn't look much better than this. If Jalen McDaniels, there's obviously some elevation factor with stars, and the Raptors don't have a star on the floor right now. So yeah, your role players are going to struggle a little bit more because they're going to have to do a little bit more than they're accustomed to. So obviously, Bruce Brown is going to be amplified when he plays next to a Nikola Jokic. I get it. I get that. But at the same time, teams like that don't play players this bad. They don't play the Malik Williams of the world, right? They just don't. Thierry Fontaine saying, Scottie's hand looked swollen a little. Did you notice? No, I did not. But if you're seeing it without a wrap, that would explain why it's swollen. Didn't he have surgery? So yeah, that would make sense. Edey should be better than Williams. No question. Zach Edey will be better than him, for sure. A quarter of the roster are G League quality. Now they draft and reload. Yeah, hopefully. Okay, let's take a quick look at the team stats. Apparently, Victor Wembanyama scored 17 points in 3 minutes. Makes not tanking last year all that more unbearable, but okay. Yeah, the Heat got a really favorable whistle. I don't know how the Raptors caught up to that. A lot of it was RJ Barrett just putting the team on his back, but midway through the third, the whistle was very uneven. The Raptors managed to out-rebound the team. The Heat, they managed to have more offensive rebounds. So really, what was it? It was turnovers. 17 turnovers for the Toronto Raptors. it really just did not help. The Heat led by as much as 25. They finished the game leading by 22. If you thought this was going to be a close game like me, you were sorely disappointed. I really thought the Raptors would be like within 12 points. Like I knew the Heat would win. Like I knew 100% I would have put $1,000 on it. Like I knew the Heat were going to win. I knew there was no chance the Raptors were going to play, even though when I saw that RJ and IQ were playing. But I thought, is it possible? The Heat just take care of business, man. They're not a team that typically loses or sleeps on teams. They're very well coached. I thought you saw it tonight. They were just a very well coached team. They're very good at executing. Um, and the Raptors did not help. Like their defensive rotations were atrocious. Their attention to detail defensively is terrible. I mean, you see Gary Trent Jr. contest on Haywood Highsmore, and then Highsmith, sorry. Hayward Highsmore, wow, Highsmith. And he contests once, goes past him, and then stares at him as he knocks down a three. Like, I do not understand that at all. I'm like, bro, where is that second compete? And you see it. You see it from time to time when the Raptors are really trying and when they're not trying. And I don't think this team has played hard much this year. And that might be, a little bit of a scathing indictment. It's hard psychologically to just play when you have nothing to play for. I get it. I do understand that. Maybe everyone just knows. Everyone's just like, why am I going to risk injury? Why am I going to risk, putting my body on the line or whatever? This team has not played hard a lot. You don't get smoked by 48 points if you're playing hard. You just don't. You don't get beat by 23 when you're playing hard. I mean, unless the other team shoots unbelievably well from three, right? Which I could argue they shot pretty well. They didn't shoot like 60% from three, where it was like the craziest shooting luck ever. No, and you can see it in spurts. Okay, like Kelly Olynyk gets a little bit frustrated with the refs, and then the next play down, oh, suddenly he's boxing out. Oh, suddenly he's grabbing an offensive rebound. Oh, suddenly he can make a shot. Just loose. Just loose with the ball, loose with attention to detail, loose with coverages. It's stupid. It's just really dumb. It's like everything is a step slow. And you know what? You just don't develop when you play soft. You just don't. You got to play hard. So for me personally, I'm very happy that RJ Barrett played hard. I'm happy that Grady Dick, for the most part, has played hard all season. All season he's played hard, right? Tonight he felt totally outmatched. He felt like shut down. And really did not have the handle, the creativity to just get loose. And anything off ball, they were recovering to very quickly. Yeah, just a really bad combination of what they have and what you don't have. Thierry saying the sloppy turnovers and the lamest defense is just demoralizing. I agree. It is very demoralizing. I can't even imagine, sitting on the bench and watching, I don't know, like 19 minutes of Malik Williams as I'm sitting on the court, like putting I'm supposed to. I don't know what is happening with this mic, but I'm hearing interference and getting all sorts of internet connection issues. And we just got new Rogers internet. Anyways, okay. Let's put if you want to call in definitely. We will wait for the post game show or post game interviews to be made. But in the meanwhile, I'm gonna put on my mock draft. It's my reverse board. And since the Raptors are more than likely to pick around 19, you can expect that this would be roughly my order for those players being picked. Let me see if I can make this a little bit smaller. So, nice one saying, bro, DraftNet got us taking Madrid Pistalas. I like that, Rob. Interesting. So, overall, again, I continue to study this draft. I talked about it in the last live that there is a player in the potentially who's going to stay in this draft who makes me change my mind a lot about that 19th pick. 17th, 18th pick, and he could be available there if he stays in the draft. I have him all the way up to 13 on my board right now. Yes, this is somewhat updated based on another 9 hours of studying mainly some of the foreign prospects, namely Nikola Topic, Salon, and well, he's not really foreign, but he is Missy. And one of the things that has gotten me very high on Yves Missy, apart from his his interviews and just overall studying some of his tape and seeing some of the passing and stuff, is just learning a little bit about him, like learning about his brother, learning about their family, learning about the fact that he just picked up basketball like a few years ago. That's interesting. Rob is a certified bucket in the league. I appreciate that. I'm just kidding. I know you're talking about Rob Dillingham. He actually moved up on my board in this version. I had him down to 11 on my big board volume 1, but I do have him moving up a little bit. And it's interesting. It's just, I don't like smallish guards who don't defend. I've always been down on them in general. I always underrate them. But the truth is, there just isn't enough talent in this draft to just downright pass up a guy who can put that kind of pressure on the opposing defense. There are some interesting things I wanted to talk about today, namely some on-off splits in terms of who does well in wins and losses, which I think was kind of an interesting way to look about it, and also Grady Dick, right? So a lot has been made of Grady being very positive lately, and as someone who's genuinely supported him throughout most of the season and has been very high on him for most, if not all, the season actually, I must caution that he hasn't really been that good at all this season. He remains bottom 3 in terms of box plus minus, or in terms of value of replacement among all rookies. He's right there with Keontae George and Scoot Henderson. He was a net negative all year, and he remains a net negative even now. He's making more shots, yes, but he's still giving up a ton by being on the court. You're not winning games right now because of Grady Dick. Even when he shoots 60%, he's not a box plus minus positive. And so this is just the breaks. This is the breaks with young players, especially 19 and 20-year-olds. Like, you just don't see 19 and 20-year-olds come into the league and be positives. That's why what Scottie did was so rare. So let's take a look at this. So this is the 15 positive box plus minus games that Grady had all year. Okay. Sorry, I'll continue to let you guys see the mock draft. I'm trying to do 2 things at once here. 14 Kalo, where I don't think he's moved much since the last one. But yeah, so he had his most positive games: Miami, Indiana, Philly, Washington, New York, San Antonio, OKC, Denver, Charlotte, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Cleveland, Charlotte, Golden State. No pattern. What I can say, however, is it's not against Detroit, Charlotte, Detroit, Charlotte, Detroit, Charlotte. That's probably a good thing. Okay. What I will tell you is mostly, if not all of those games, came with Scottie or Jakob or both in the lineup. So let's look at Grady without Scottie. So this is Grady Dick since Scottie Barnes got injured. And that final column is the box plus minus every single game. You'll notice 2 positive games, Charlotte and Denver. Some of his worst games actually came earlier in the season. So what he's done now is he's basically gotten rid of like the negative 25 box plus minus games. Like, I don't think people realize how bad he was to start the season. Going from probably the 5th worst player in the NBA to the 80th, 70th worst player in the NBA is a really big jump to take in season. Okay. It's very rare for guys to develop this much in season. Most guys develop in the off season. So for him to just get better through the year and to accelerate through the year, he's actually finishing his rookie. He's one of the rarest rookies in the sense that he's finishing his year much stronger than he started it. That speaks to his conditioning. That also speaks to his coaching staff. That speaks to a lot of good things. Most players will finish their rookie season much weaker and you're seeing that across the board for the most part, like other than Victor Wembanyama and Grady Dick and maybe like a couple of others. Like Chet Holmgren started out stronger. A lot of the guys started out stronger. So it makes me think what is possible within a couple of years with him. And I think a lot, I think a lot is possible with him. I think you could get to the point where he'd be a 25-minute per game wing off the bench who can do a little bit of secondary creation, a little bit of connective playmaking, be good for 7 or 8 3-point attempts every single night, provide great positive spacing, provide a little bit of rim pressure, but not a tremendous amount of rim pressure until that handle gets a lot better or he becomes a lot more athletic. But I think most importantly will be his acceleration on defense. He's already a pretty good rebounder, probably already has pretty decent size, depending on who you believe. He's either 6'6" or 6'8". I've seen him up close. He looks closer to 6'8" to me. So maybe he's grown. I don't know, since his pre-draft measurements. But I don't think he's 6'6". I've seen a lot of guys who are 6'6" in my life. He seems bigger than that. So, I mean, tonight, if you believe the box score, he started at power forward. So, as a bigger playmaker, I think his passing and his defense, combined with his shooting, are what is going to make him like a really, really solid wing in the NBA. To the level of, if not greater than, guys like Karis LeVert and Max Strus. That's where I'm setting the floor on his career. The ceiling is the ceiling. We can talk about the ceiling all day. We can talk about, Petrovic, and we can talk about Reggie Miller and Klay Thompson. Those are lofty expectations for any young player. But the floor being, of the Duncan Robinson, Max Strus, Karis LeVert type, that level of contributor, is a very, very good thing for the Raptors because that already exceeds the median value that a 13th overall pick usually provides. Usually. Obviously, on the high end, the 13th overall pick becomes Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, Kobe Bryant. But those are very rare. If you go through the history of 13th overall picks, most of them don't work out. So what I'm talking about is a player better than Ed Davis. There's a ton. Anyways. I think a lot of it will come down to reps, obviously, physical development with him. But also, he strikes me as a player who's better when the players around him are better. A little bit like Bruce Brown, a little bit like Kelly Olynyk. It's funny, the Raptors have all these guys who would benefit from playing next to a star, and then they made them play without a star. So it begs the question, do the Raptors have a star? Well, take a look at this. If you do have a star, it's one of these 5 guys, right? And more than likely, it's one of the 3 guys at the top. Emmanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes. These are their numbers in wins and losses. You can take a look. You could say Scottie Barnes, he does better in losses. There's a reason for that. He takes more of a load in losses. He takes more shots in losses. He takes more of a, everything takes a rise in losses. But what's interesting is in wins, he is far more active defensively. And he takes fewer shots. So interestingly enough, loading him up with higher usage may not actually have been to the team's benefit. It's to his long-term benefit, but it's not to his team's benefit right now. And if you're looking between those players, who is the most natural first option as per their actual skill sets right now? Not talent, not future value, not skill set, not hype, not lottery status, none of it. Just who is the most natural first option based on their current skill set. And it's pretty obvious to me that it's Emmanuel Quickley. Right now, it would be completely crazy if you were trying to run a successful playoff offense for you to run away from Emmanuel Quickley in favor of Scottie Barnes. He is a better shooter. He's a deeper shooter. He has a more creative package. It's just, he's not as physically dominant and he's not as good a playmaker. With Scottie, as his ball handling develops, as his mid-range package develops, as his shooting develops, he's going to be able to do a lot of stuff that Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett won't be able to do. So the whole buy-in on this is that you give him those reps now so he can grow into those. It's hard, though, for him just like as it was, with Fred and Pascal here, for him to know that him taking higher usage is actually hurting his team. And I think that, this is just going to be a constant push pull with the Raptors and him and the coaching staff and him to convince him that he has to continue to take these higher usage possessions, even when it's not directly helping his team. But I found it interesting that Emmanuel quickly was kind of the opposite, where his splits are just generally speaking much better in wins. And again, this includes his time in New York. Same thing with RJ. That includes his time in New York. The Grady thing is the same. His minutes are higher in losses. His 3-point shooting is, of course, much higher in wins. And Gary Trent Jr., the same thing. So it's just what you're seeing here is not, it's actually pretty, it's pretty statistically significant given the sample size is not huge, but it is significant, which is that in wins, the players are more optimized to their current skill set. And in losses, they are less optimized to their current skill set, which is to say, in wins, Scottie Barnes is a defense first, secondary playmaker who does a lot of his team's connective playmaking, but not necessarily as much of his team's shot taking. Same thing with RJ Barrett. Like, it's the opposite. In losses, you're seeing more assists, right? In wins, you're seeing more scoring. Well, what is he more naturally? He's more naturally a scorer. He's less naturally an assist guy. He's less naturally a playmaker. So again, as guys move more towards their natural skill set, right? The challenge for the Raptors coaching staff this year was to put guys into positions which were unnatural for them. So to make Scottie a guy who takes 15 threes is unnatural. To make, RJ Barrett a guy who gets 12 assists is unnatural. All of these things are unnatural. Like even Grady taking 14 threes, he's not a high volume 3-point shooter. I think he was a decent volume 3-point shooter at Kansas, but he's not super high volume. So again, you're forcing guys out of their comfort zone. That is going to make them worse to make them better. That's always been the whole vision of what this team is doing, what Darko Rajakovic is doing, is constantly pushing guys away from their comfort zone in order to facilitate future growth for skill sets that have to come. And this is what, it takes future vision. And it talks about it, a few lives ago, which is that there are only two ways to be, there's two things you need to be successful in NBA and in life, is you need to be contrarian and you need to be right. So, with Scottie Barnes, right? You needed to see a scorer when everybody else saw a non-scorer. You needed to see a guy who could improve his shooting when everyone else saw a guy who couldn't improve his shooting. Because if the whole world saw Scottie for what he really was, he would have gone first overall, right? You needed to see RJ Barrett for what he is today. You needed to see him as a guy who would be unlocked in this offense. You needed to see him as a guy who would buy into defense. You need to see him as a guy who could develop his playmaking and his finishing. You needed to see him as a guy who could eventually work hard enough to offset some of his left-hand dominant tendencies. And you needed to see him as more than a toxic asset. If you didn't see him as that, he wouldn't have been available in that trade. And you had to be right. And the Raptors have been right. See, so that's the thing. With Grady, I wonder how many teams scouted him last year and saw a playmaker. I know the Raptors saw playmakers who were talking about it all, after he was drafted. But I wonder how many other teams saw a guy who could eventually average 5-6 assists per game. I wonder how many of them saw that. I wonder if Grady himself saw that. I wonder if, his coaches saw that at Kansas. I wonder if his high school coaches saw that. Or I wonder if the Raptors were kind of unique in their ability to see that in spurts. And if they were unique in seeing that, well, they have been right. His playmaking is better. Even tonight, where I don't think he had a single assist tonight, his playmaking was very decent. He had 0 assists tonight. He was one of the better playmakers. So that's what I'm saying. The Raptors have to see what the league is not willing to see. They have to be willing to see a starting point guard in Emmanuel Quickley when the rest of the league sees, I don't know, Colin Sexton meets Jamal Crawford part 2. You know what I mean? They need to be able to see a guy who can facilitate. And frankly, I think Emmanuel Quickley's playoff performances and some of his, lack of playmaking in his second year, where they made him more of a traditional point guard in New York and he struggled, I think that soured a lot of people on his ability to be a lead guard in the NBA as opposed to a backup. And I think that was reflected in the contract that the Knicks were willing to offer him. I think that was reflected in, eventually the trade offers that the Knicks got for Emmanuel Quickley. And I think ultimately it's reflective of what the Raptors eventually ended up paying to get Emmanuel Quickley. Because if you're looking at tonight's game, I don't think it's any question who the Raptors' two best players are. No question. No question in my mind who the Raptors' two best players tonight were, and who their two best players for most of the season since Scottie's been injured have been. It's been Emmanuel Quickley and it's been RJ Barrett. You got two of those guys for a guy tonight, for the Knicks, who is basically their fifth option, which is OG Anunoby. I know OG is one of my favorite players, and he brings a lot more than offense to the table. He brings defense as well, and he's more of a defensive prospect. But please don't forget that he was your third option on offense. He was your third option on offense. That was a huge part of the problem, for the Raptors, which is he's not a very good offensive player right now. He's a standstill shooter who saw a lot of, we saw a lot of rumors about him wanting to expand his role and expand his, and I was like for it. I was for it because I like the guy. But now watching, RJ Barrett and just seeing like what a more natural player he is, like in terms of like driving, scoring, like some of the stuff that RJ does is just, it's so impressive. Like, again, can he be a first option on a winning team? I don't think so. But could he be like a third option if he could like figure out the passing part and usage part? Yeah, I'm sure he can. I think he can be a third option on a pretty good team. If RJ Barrett played with, I don't know, like if we traded RJ Barrett for Jamal Murray, on the Denver Nuggets, assuredly the Denver Nuggets get worse. Would they still be a title contender though? Like, how big is the gap here, right? Like, does he do anything better than Murray to the point where you can say, okay, well, because he rebounds a little bit better and because he's like a better paint, I don't say he's a better paint finisher, but because he is pretty dominant and going to the paint, just playing with a guy, maybe instead of Aaron Gordon there, then you get a stretch four, and then he kind of does he occupies more of the spaces that Aaron Gordon does. So it's interesting. I don't know. Like, I think he's a guy who can function. Do you know what I mean? Like, he could function on a good team. If you told me he was a starter on a championship team, I'd believe you. And I think if you told me Emmanuel Quickley was a starter on a championship team, I would believe you, because I have seen fourth and fifth starters that are worse than both those guys be on championship teams. Now, the goal for the Raptors right now is you need to bridge the gap. And I've mentioned it 100 times, and I'll say it one more time. I think you need a guy who's better than those two to play next to Scottie. Not readily available, not easily available. But if you get a guy who is as good, if not slightly worse than Scottie, but better than those two guys, you're solved. Like, this will be solved if that happens. Who is that player? I think it would be wise at this point to go through the league and see who those players are, and if at all they would be available, and we'll end the live on that discussion. I'm just letting this play out. Ron Holland, my second player here. Let's take a look at some of the comments here. I always wondered how LaMelo Ball would fit on this team. He wouldn't. Zoltan saying, I think the Pacers are going to get bounced in the play-in. I don't think they're going to be in the play-in for the most part. I don't think. If Raptors want to sign IQ, prepare to pay him 20 to 25. Oh, I wish, but I don't think that's going to happen, bro. I think it's going to be, 25 to 30. I think you better get prepared to pay 26 to 30. The Raptors have a history of overpaying guys. And, they may just see the value in, I don't know. There's a case to be made that he doesn't probably deserve 30. I can make a very solid case that he deserves closer to 22 to 23. I hope he can get him under 25. That would be great. I'd be very, very happy about that. because he was a backup guy, right? Like he was a backup guard. If you get him for under 25, I think that's a good deal on his future value, right? But reportedly, he might see himself as being worth like more because his numbers are so flashy. But I think if I'm the Raptors, I rebuff that and just say, okay, then go restricted free agency. I just think that it's a dangerous game to play because I don't know. You have a team like the Spurs out there who might really, really, really see the value in pairing him with Victor Wembanyama. And if they pay him 33, it's not like you can it's not like you can lose him for nothing, right? Like you would have to match. And opening up that, okay, go find us an offer that it kind of sours the relationship a little bit. And the Raptors haven't historically known to do that. So I don't know. But I think fair value is 24 to 26. Fair value accounting for future growth. Pacers need to win their next to avoid the play-in. Fair, but their next game is against Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken, right? So yeah, I don't think I'm pretty sure they're going to beat Atlanta, right? Am I crazy to assume that? I mean, Atlanta. I mean, I might be crazy to assume that because, hang on, let me see. Atlanta just barely lost to the Minnesota Timberwolves, which is crazy if you think about it. Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, Bogdanovich, Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter. But yeah, Kobe Buffkin played minutes tonight. That's crazy. Kobe Buffkin played 10 minutes tonight and had 6 points. Adrian Griffin played tonight as well. So are the Hawks playing their young guys now? Suddenly? Onyeka Okongwu is out. The Hawks are playing with like a ton of injuries. Jalen Johnson not playing. Garrison Matthews with 23 minutes off the bench. Bruno Fernando with 22 minutes off the bench. People were trying to sell me on Bruno Fernando when the Raptors were Orlando playing Bucks. Japjeet Singh saying they only played their bench in the fourth. Nice. That's interesting. Barnes and Ant pairing thoughts. Great pairing. Really good pairing. Not going to happen though. The Lakers narrowly beat the Memphis Grizzlies. How the hell did that happen? I mean, Anthony Davis and LeBron James played 41 and 43 minutes. This is crazy. Dude, you need to see this. How? Explain it. Make it make sense. How do you just barely beat this team? Their best player was Gigi Jackson tonight. He had 31 points. Gigi Jackson had 31. Scottie Pippen Jr. had 28. And holy shit, the Lakers nearly lost this. They came into the fourth one up on this team. That's crazy. That's crazy. Dude, that's nuts. OKC beats Milwaukee. Of course, Giannis out for the rest of the season. New York barely beating Brooklyn, and Brooklyn rested a lot of guys, man. This was also weird to me. Like, what is going on? It was the Cam Thomas show. It was 41 points for Cam Thomas, right? Mikal Bridges continues to play his, small minutes. Like he's basically keeping that games played streak alive, but like he's not Josh Hart. Wow. And again, OG Anunoby, 15 points. Precious Achua, 8 minutes. Is he falling out of the rotation slowly, or are they resting him? Like, I don't get it. But I guess with OG back, Jericho Sims gets 23 minutes tonight. So no Isaiah Hartenstein tonight, but Mitchell Robinson gets 25 minutes. That's interesting. Why is Mitchell Robinson coming off the bench? This is an old Tibbs thing where he plays his third stringer above his first stringer. What am I trying to say here? Yeah. Overall, I mean, Boston beats Charlotte without anybody. They didn't play Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, who played for Boston tonight. Sam Hauser, Luke Cornett, Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard went off 31 points. The Namus Keita. I think Leo would have a really good time with that. I think he played for the Sacramento Kings recently. Um, Crazy. O'Shea Brissett, like Xavier Tillman. I mean, insanity. Um, and I mean, for the Hornets, I mean, you have to think about it. Like they didn't play their guys major minutes, but this is a weird time for the NBA. And if there ever was a bigger reason for teams to advocate for fewer games, this would be it. Because these games are not fun to watch. Like you're seeing some of the lineups and you're just like, what am I watching out here? Um, insane. I do want to say, I just have like a brief rant about this. Um, I Tim Bontemps on the Zach Low Post podcast said that Evan Mobley was worse than Cade Cunningham because he hadn't developed a jump shot. He said, I'd rather have a 6'8" guy who can dribble and pass and shoot than a power forward who can't shoot. And I just want to say that among all the stupid things that have ever been said in the history of the world, this may be one of the dumbest things I've ever heard anybody say in my life. Evan Mobley is one of the 5 best defenders in the NBA. Period, full stop, end of sentence. He is incredible. Okay, worst case, 10th. He's one of the 10 best defenders in the NBA. He's incredible. He's also shooting 41% from 3, by the way. Or sorry, he's shooting 37%. What is Evan Mobley shooting from 3? Hold on. I'm going to pull this up for a sec. Evan Mobley is shooting, and he shoots 58% from the field. And he shoots 38.9%, 38.6% from 3. It's not on high volume, but he's come a long way from the 26% career averages. And I just want to say, like, just because the guy's not taking the statistical jump that you expect him to doesn't mean that he wasn't better as a rookie than Cade Cunningham is right now. Because he was. It's just crazy to me. He would just say anything. Just anything. You know, I'll tell you what, if Kobe Altman, if the Indiana Pacers were to dangle Evan Mobley in a trade, I don't think you want to know how much I would give up to get that guy. I think I would give up like almost every young asset on this team plus picks to get that guy. Be such a great pairing with him and Scottie. Just insane. He has a vote for All NBA, right? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. And I'm sure that this Nimrod is one of those guys who's going to, not vote for Jokic for MVP. And I got to tell you, Coach Mo messaged me this morning. He was just like, Rob, this what's going on with this league not wanting to give Jokic MVP? And I want to misquote him. But facts. Like, if it was not going to Joel Embiid, which it can't because of the injury, it's got to go to Jokic. If it's not going to Jokic, in the absolute worst case of not going to Jokic, I can understand a case for Luka Doncic, although I really can't. Jokic is the MVP. If he doesn't win MVP, then that would be 2 straight MVPs in which he was robbed of MVP. That's crazy. When you start stacking, so don't give me MVPs when it comes to GOAT debates. Don't tell me, oh, this guy had 3 MVPs and this guy had 1 MVP. I don't care anymore, because the assholes who vote for MVP they're just stupid. Like, some of these MVPs in league history, and I'm not just talking the Steve Nash ones because those are egregious, but some of these MVPs are so arbitrary, so stupid, and it's just like, it's a narrative thing, it's like, this guy's popular, this guy, like, we like the story around this guy, we like, I don't get it. Okay, let's take a look, and we'll call it finding Scottie a second. We'll call this a sort of an exercise in finding Scottie a second option. And let's just HY saying it's a popularity contest. Agreed. I agree. I'm getting a little bit of interference on my mic. I apologize for that. I'm not sure. I need to get a smaller XLR cable. My XLR cable is 25 feet, which probably occasionally has negative impact on my audio quality. Okay, we go through the leaders here. All right. Okay, so the criteria is as follows. The criteria is that this player must be A, better than RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly, and B, gettable. Jokic, no. Doncic, no. Antetokounmpo, no. Shea, no. Domas, no. Brunson, no. LeBron, Tyrese, Anthony Davis, nope. Okay, let me just unselect all these guys. And we'll only select players who meet the criteria because it feels like way more are not going to meet the criteria. So we continue to go down this list and not a lot of people are available. Donovan Mitchell could be available for a crazy price if he becomes available. Ironically, Fred VanVleet right there. Ironic indeed. Derek White, probably not available. Dante DiVincenzo, probably not available. But ironically, check his contract value at some point. Paul George, in the absolute crazy chance that the Clippers get bounced, would they let him go? They didn't give him the extension. I mean, like, yeah. Okay. Well, there's the Scottie high mark right there. So now there's Scottie Barnes at 30 in terms of value of replacement. Most of the guys above him did play a lot more games than him, to be fair. DeMar DeRozan would not come back. Pascal Siakam's right there, 38. DeJounte Murray. That's a guy who could be available. Alex Caruso's value is mainly defensively. So I'm going to exclude him from this list because I don't think that he necessarily fits. Evan Mobley's value is also coming almost defensively. So is Nick Claxton. I don't think those guys fit. Would Trey Murphy III be available? I don't think so. So as you're seeing, most of the players who are really, really good aren't available to be traded for. It's not to say they're impossible to trade for. They're just really hard to trade for. Would they trade Brandon Ingram? No. Can you even afford Jaylen Brown, who's been much better defensively this year than he has been in previous years? No. And there's Emmanuel Quickly. So really, interestingly enough, you have Scottie Barnes at 30. You have Emmanuel Quickly at 67. Ironically, you have Kelly Olynyk at 66. And granted, I'm using only value replacement, and maybe I should be using offensive box plus minus instead as a good barometer of just offensive talent. Ironically, Scottie is just ahead of Pascal Siakam in terms of offensive box plus minus. Anthony Simons. No, I don't think that him and Emmanuel Quickly would be compatible given defensive issues. Cade Cunningham, which is incredible that he's this high given how bad he's been for most of the year, but he's been much better lately. As you can see, most of his value is being lost defensively. He is almost the worst defender. Other than Anthony Simons, he's the worst defender we've looked at in this entire list. Colin Sexton, terrible. Damian Lillard, terrible. Cade Cunningham, terrible. Klay Thompson, unbelievably terrible. Bogdan Bogdanovic would not be ahead of those guys, but he would complement those guys pretty well. I wonder how much better the Raptors would be if they replaced Gary Trent Jr. with Bogdan Bogdanovic. Just saying. That would be an interesting. Michael Porter Jr., I don't think so. Sam Hauser, I don't think so. Malik Monk. Okay, Malik might be an outside shot of somebody who could be available and is a free agent, is currently injured. I'm not sure I'm actually pretty sure. Actually, I don't want to say people may not realize this, but I gotta say Malik is on the same level, if not a higher level than Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett right now. Just as a playmaker and an athlete, like if you put him in the same situations, he's doing just as much, if not more. So I think, do you do it by committee? You get Scottie and then you get 3 second-ish third options? Because again, the way I would prefer this to be is I would drop Paul George on this team, like maybe a younger version of Paul George, or a more defensively oriented version of Jamal Murray or Donovan Mitchell, or Kawhi Leonard, or a Trae Young who plays defense, or a James Harden who's a little bit younger, or a CJ McCollum who's a little bit younger. Again, or an Anthony Simons who actually plays defense, or a Trey Murphy the third. You know what I mean? Like you get someone of that. Well, I don't know if Trey Murphy the third necessarily fits the mold, but Jalen Green is here. And Austin Reeves. These are like really out of the box type of like, I don't think any of these guys necessarily move the needle as second options. Now, Miles Bridges, I don't really want him on the team. I think almost everything I'm looking at here is leading me to think you're going to have to draft this guy, or you're going to have to develop him. So, you have a Brandon Pajimski here. You have a Jabari Smith here. You have a Kevin Huerter here. Well, Kevin Huerter will not fit the mold at all. Is there some sort of untapped value somewhere here? Interesting, because there you have OG Anunoby, who's, maybe someone that a lot of us saw as the second option to Scottie. And just seeing how far he is down the list here, it's interesting. There's Dennis Schroeder there. Again, like if you want your starting lineup to be successful, you have to maximize the number of guys you have in the top 60. And you see a guy who hasn't really started a ton for the Celtics this year, Al Horford, and he's 53rd. He's still a pretty good player, right? So I think for the Raptors, honestly, you'll have to consolidate. You just can't have so many mid players, man. I think that's it. You have too many players who are really, really mid, and Lauri Markkanen is it, right? That's it. That's the goal. That's the priority. That's the goal. That's the talent. That's the level of talent you would need to put around Scottie. It's a position of need. He's big, so it'll help you return back to being a bigger team. Yes, Lauri would make a huge difference. And yeah, like you would have to give up a lot to get him. I don't know what you would have to give to get him, but what Brandon Pajimski is today will be for the rest of his career. I don't think you can say that. I don't think you can say that. Why? How do you know? How do you know? You just ready to sell off a guy who's 21 years old, 22 years old, and just say, okay, that's who he is forever? I don't think so. I think the guy's going to get a lot better. I don't know if those guys are as good or better than RJ. Fair. I mean, RJ Barrett's making a push, man. Like, I mean, if he can become that guy, I've always left the door open, right? Like if IQ and RJ get better, more the merrier, right? I think the question you have to have is how. Okay, so now you have a talent who, in theory, okay, would you trade the number one in a trade for Lauri? Yes. Yes, I would. In this draft, yes. In next year's draft, fuck no. In next year's draft, you couldn't get me to trade the first. You wouldn't get me to trade Cooper Flag, or in the next year, Ayo Dosunmu. You wouldn't get me. Sorry, not Ayo Dosunmu. AJ Devansa. You wouldn't get me to trade number one in those two drafts for Lauri plus 3 first-round picks. But in this year's draft, I actually. So here's something funny. So I sometimes while taking my dog for a walk or whatever, I turn on Raptors Republic post game with Samson. And I'm just curious to see what he said. And I caught a part where he said, he's like, at some point, someone is going to have a take where I think it was like 20 minutes into his pod. He said, someone's going to have a take where they're going to say that, maybe you'd be better off not getting the first overall or second overall pick in this draft because it is really expensive. He's like, I don't know who's going to have that take, but if somebody has that take, DM it to me. Well, yeah, I have that take. I 100% have that take, and I've said it multiple times. Yeah. I mean, the first overall pick, if you pay Marvin Bagley or James Wiseman second overall pick money for 4 years, that's a terrible investment. That's a horrible investment. And if those guys are the guys at the top of the draft and you have to pick them because that's who you're going to pick, well, then, yeah, it's a really terrible fucking investment. First of all, every rookie contract on the front end is always a terrible investment, almost always, unless it's Victor Wembanyama, Scottie Barnes, or Evan Mobley, or one of those guys. Very rare cases are, if the goal of basketball is in very simple terms to spend money to get wins, then rookie contracts are a terrible investment on the front end. Sometimes because of, upperclassmen and, seniors, etc., being picked later in the draft, sometimes the best value, bang for buck, like dollar per win, is actually between 20 and 35. And that seems to be a pretty good range where the Raptors have done pretty well. OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and of course, in years past, other teams have also done well there. Draymond Green, right? So Gilbert Arenas, there's a ton of players. Nikola Jovic, the guy who just dropped, 4 threes on us tonight, he was one of those late first round picks. Peyton Watson, the guy who just had 5 blocks the other day, he was the 30th overall pick. So that's a really good place to be. Ironically, the Raptors traded one of their picks in that range for Ochai Agbaji and Kelly Olynyk, and we'll see. The jury is still out on how good or bad a trade that was. They didn't give up anything of consequence, of course, other than that OKC pick. And they got back 2 guys, one of whom figures to be in the rotation next year. So maybe it's something worth, and of course, at the time that the deal was made, I kind of defended it, saying the Raptors, there's no way in hell that you're using all 4 of these picks. But hey, you might not even have the San Antonio pick, which I'm calling the San Antonio pick for shits and giggles, but you might not even have the 4th pick. So you might just end up with 2 picks in this draft, at which point, if one of those prospects do fall into the late 20s and you want 2 cracks at 2 guys, maybe you do regret moving off that pick. I have no idea. But what I will say is that the chances are that the Raptors probably won't pick 6th. There's not a lot of guarantees going into May 12th. I believe that's when the lottery is, right? There's not a lot of guarantees. But one of the things that's almost for sure is that the Raptors will not pick 6th. Historically, that means the Raptors will lose their pick because for the most part, actually not for the most part, since the NBA introduced this new format, the 6th pick has never moved up, ever. The 7th pick has moved up multiple times. Keegan Murray and Scottie Barnes. So the Raptors moved up from 7 to 4. The Kings moved up from 7 to 4. The 6th pick has never moved up. It's only ever moved down. Okay. Well, that doesn't mean it can't happen. The stats are the stats. The numbers are the numbers. And unless it's rigged, I think it's time for the Raptors to move up to 4 or 3 or 2 or 1. I think that is what the numbers dictate. Of course, that's not what the numbers dictate. The numbers dictate that the Raptors have a 46%, 45% chance of keeping their pick and a 55% chance of losing it. And that's what the numbers dictate. It doesn't matter what happened in the past. Don't tell me that you wish the Raptors were at 7th because the 7th pick historically moves up, because I will smack you. It's not. You're better off at 6th. You would have been best off at 5th, of course. I think 5th would have been the best because then the odds of losing your pick are almost 0 and the odds of keeping your pick are pretty good, but the odds of moving up are pretty decent too. But yes, you couldn't find your way to fifth, so you get to sixth. You out tanked the Memphis Grizzlies, which is really hard to do. If you see some of the rosters they've had, it's like holy crap. But yes, um, your best shot, your absolute best shot at finding a player who you can put next to Scottie, who's going to become as good as a Lauri Markkanen or become like the type of player. And again, no one is saying that Scottie Barnes at 22, 23 is ready to lead you to championships. Chances are that's not going to happen until he's 25. So what you need to do is you need to hit on this pick. If you manage to keep it, if you somehow luck into getting in the fourth, third, whatever, you need to pick the player that you believe has the best chance of being the best asset in 2 years. And I just want to say that I think this guy's a pretty safe bet. Now, I saw a mock draft the other day in which Nikola Topic was all the way down to 13th. Holy shit. If you saw what RJ Barrett did today, this is like the guard version of that. This is the point guard version of that. He will do all of that. His first step is elite. If you can see his game, other than like, okay, yeah, he's a defensive liability just like RJ. He's the same size as RJ, but he's got better passing than RJ. And that's where you talk about constant downhill attack, right? In your second unit, having a playmaker who can get paint touches at will and collapse the defense and constantly put you in rotation and finish at the rim is going to be Ram Rider. He can't shoot to save his life. That's not true. That's not true. That's not true. See, like, that's the problem. Okay, let me end this on a rant. I've watched a lot of mock drafts. I watch them partially as entertainment because while I'm cooking, it's cool to see what other people are saying about them. Believe me when I tell you, most people who make mock drafts do not watch these players play. They haven't watched them play for more than 4 minutes to 5 minutes. It makes me really angry. I don't know why it pisses me off. It pisses me off because I'm actually taking the time. Rob is crazy. Okay, cool. It upsets me because around this time, everybody becomes an expert on the draft. Everyone becomes an expert and everyone becomes very definitive about young players. The truth is, I don't know that Nikola Topic is going to become a good shooter in the NBA, but I do know this guy impacts winning, and I know that he's sounds like a crazy person talking to himself. Cool. Banned. Banhammer. Love it. Ban. That's hilarious. Yeah, there's no need for that. What I'm saying is take the time to actually watch these players. But if you don't take the time to watch these players, full games, etc., then at the very least offer a somewhat humble opinion on them and try not to be the this guy is trash variety. None of these players are trash. They're all very good players. That's the point. That's why they're being drafted, because they're good, right? 1. 2, these are 18 and 19-year-old kids. You don't know what they're capable of. You don't know what they're capable of doing. And just because somebody says that this is a bad draft or whatever, or this guy's a bust or whatever, go back in history and listen to all the people that they said were busts. Just go back and listen to all the people. Like, my God, some of the takes that they had. Look at the takes on Kristaps Porzingis as recently as 2 years ago. And look at him today. This is not constant. Okay. Like, they're not done. This is like looking at clay and saying, I know exactly what it's going to be. You don't. And I'm telling you that for a young player playing against grown men, that this dude has impacted winning in a way that I haven't seen a young player do in Europe in a long time. I would put him up there with some of the better European players that I've seen in my life. Dino Raja, Ricky Rubio, of that sort. Maybe not. Okay, Tony Kukoc and Luka Doncic, maybe not that quite high, but you put Shepherd over him. I actually put Shepherd behind him for this one. I don't know, man. I have a feeling like with Reed, I'm going to end up at like 7th or 8th by the end of this draft cycle. But yeah, Stephon Castle, I just want to say he's growing on me more. He's growing me more. Like the more games of his I go back and watch, the more I'm impressed by his screen setting. The ability to set or to create inverted pick and rolls, I think would only be enhanced if the Raptors actually found a big who could do stuff with the basketball that wasn't Scottie Barnes. But if Scottie is your 4, your inverted pick and roll could be really interesting as well, especially if he's your 4 or 5. And I think that having guards who can screen, now Emmanuel quickly can screen, RJ Barrett in theory can screen, and Stephon Castle can really screen. So I think like Stephon Castle is like a 6'6" combo guard off the bench who can play with Gradey, off of Gradey. Like I think you get a lot of size. Ironically, he provides a ton of like Scottie overlap in terms of like skill set. You have a couple of those guys in this draft. So really, at the guard position, it's really between him. There's a lot of guards in this draft, first of all. But between him, Ron Holland, Nikola Topic, and of course, Reed Shepherd. And if you're going to go wings, obviously, like my number 1 remains Zachary Risache. And some people have compared him to Harrison Barnes. Some people have compared him to Michael Porter Jr. I think there's a little bit of case for both. Outside of that list, of course, Rob Dillingham. I remain intrigued to see what it will become. A lot of people really like to, boost up like Keontae George and guys like that. Keontae George has not been impactful on winning. He's been a big part of why the Jazz are so bad this year. He hasn't been efficient. I think he shoots like 36% from the field, like 32% from 3. What are we talking about? It's just a high volume chucker. It's exactly what I said he was going to be. That being said, he's been better as a playmaker than I thought he would be. He's held up athletically at the NBA, which is good, and he'll probably get better, and that's good. Will Hardy's a great coach. The blasphemy. Go fuck yourself. What is blasphemous, bro? 36% from the field. Those are his stats. It's not blasphemy, bro. Those are his stats. Okay? I'm at a point where I actually dislike Keontae George because of you. Like literally, like it's insane to me that you boost this guy so much just because you liked him in the draft cycle. His stats are blasphemous. Facts. Rob Dillingham is not 6'1". Do you think he's 6'3"? Does he look 6'3" to you? I'll be very curious to see if he measures out. I don't think he's 6'3", bro. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think he's 6'3". Does he look 6'3" to you? Does he look bigger than Emmanuel Quickley? Because Emmanuel Quickley is solidly 6'1". I don't see it, man. He looks miniature to me. So yeah, I mean, look, it's not gonna matter. He doesn't have that crazy wings. Like, look, I've seen combo guard tweener type guards, score first guards. They always need some sort of advantage to succeed in the NBA. It doesn't just happen that way. Like Allen Iverson, great example. How did he succeed? Low efficiency, yeah, but like crazy athleticism. He was just a freak of an athlete. Allen Iverson, one of the best athletes I've ever seen in my life, Okay, we're gonna have one caller. FA, what's going on, man?
Okay. I'm just listening to you and somebody saying blasphemous. I'm like, okay, let me join this call. The numbers are the numbers, right? Like you were right. It's not like you're saying that it's not like you're saying it's not gonna get better, but the numbers are the numbers. Shooting like 36, but it's not very efficient. That's just the fact.
Yeah, it's not efficient, and that's pretty much who he's been. Like he wasn't efficient in college. He's not efficient now. He's 6'3", 6'4". He's a combo guard. They've over leveraged him as, a point guard. They're thinking of him as like a point guard going forward. I don't know. But I think he's been better than what I thought. That's all I can say. But he's not better than Grady Dick for me. I don't think
Yeah,
so.
it's not better than Grade. I think the comparison then was when Grady Dick was thinking it out at the beginning of the season. But now you can't compare Grady Dick on the second half of the season with what Keontae George has been doing. So Grady Dick has been way better.
I agree. But, Grady hasn't exactly been great either. And I think it's just that's a testament to um, young players struggling. But I
Hmm.
will say
Yeah.
this Keontae George is like an NBA, physically looks NBA ready. Grady did
Hmm.
not.
I agree. Yeah.
So that to me is the difference. It's like if you come into the league and you're like man child physically, like you're almost as strong as the guys you're going up against, to me, half the advantage is gone. But if you are like Kobe Bryant when he was 17, 18 years old coming into the league, it's like you're going to get bullied. It doesn't matter how talented you are, you're just going to get bullied inside. Look at Tracy McGrady, Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki, all these guys who came in physically underdeveloped. And we assume that just because guys are 18 instead of 19, but Grady came in and what did Darko say? He has his body of a 16-year-old, right? So
Yeah.
now I'm like, he has more growth upside than the average freshman because of where he came in physically. His upper body strength is nowhere close to some of those guys. So I think that his growth will be greater than all
And
those
you
other
and,
guys.
and you also look at how he sees the game, right? The cutting, the passing, the dribble hands off, the IQ pretty much, and he's not a selfish player at all. So that also gonna bode well for him in the future.
Yeah. Have you watched any of Devin Carter? Ram Rider saying Devin Carter at 15 is better. I very much disagree. Have you seen any of him? He's
No,
Anthony Carter's son. He played for Providence.
no, I've not. No,
Damn.
well, I'm gonna go look after this. After when I get
I
off, I'll
don't
look
like
at.
him. I don't like him, but I'll be curious. I'll be curious to see what you see. Like I'm not a fan of his at all. Like I don't see how he gets any advantages or separation. He was struggling getting past this man in college. Um,
What do you think of Cody Williams that you have on the screen?
I am all over the place on him.
I
I,
think everybody wants to compare him with his brother, but he doesn't have the physique of his brother. And
he was better as a freshman than his brother was as a freshman. It's worth saying. He played in a tougher conference and he was better.
okay, well, yeah, well,
Stat for stat, he's ahead of his brother at the same age. That doesn't mean that he would become his brother or better than his
exactly.
brother.
Growth is not linear, right? So,
That's fair. And you could
mm,
argue that as the younger brother of an NBA player, his growth
mm-hmm.
has already been accelerated by that fact. Who knows? Playing with his
But
brother.
also the size and the strength for the NBA. Hope he. I don't think he has the physique of his brother too, right? So,
Well, in fairness, he's also 18, 19 years old. And so when you look at that, you say, okay, if you could get this guy into like Jalen Williams physique, like if you can get him filled out, is what I'm saying. You know
mm-hmm.
what I mean? That's not a for sure thing. Not everyone fills out. Jalen McDaniels is 26 years old. He has not filled out to this day. So some guys just have those rounded shoulders and they're not going to fill out. They're not going to become like chiseled Adonises. But I remain very intrigued by his. I don't know what his shooting is. That's the problem. I see a 41% 3-point shooter who doesn't shoot. So it's like,
Yeah,
is it a volume thing? Like, how much do I trust the mechanics? There's the same thing with Ron Holland, right? So Ron Holland shot terribly in the G League Ignite this year, but I trust his mechanics a lot. Like the shot looks good to me. Stefan Castle, like when I saw him take a shot,
exactly.
it didn't look terrible to me.
That's why I wasn't worried about Stephen Castle, right? Because with repetition, I think he's not going to be a 40% shooter, but can get it up to like 35 or 34. Something
Yeah,
reasonable.
yeah, I agree. Country Kong
What?
saying, I had no idea Grady was selected 13, but who is the best rookie who was selected after? As in the best rookie after him? Jaime
What?
Jaquez?
No,
Brandon Pajimski?
one of this guy that went to Houston at 20, what's his name again? I'm drawing a blank.
Cam Whitmore?
Yeah, I like him a lot.
He has been much better than I thought.
Is
Yeah.
a shocker too. He likes to shoot the ball a lot, like take some bad shot. But I like his aggressiveness, drive, and everything.
Yeah, I wonder about his defense. I wonder about his
Oh,
playmaking. But yes,
oh
as
yeah.
again, as an athlete, like holy
Hmm.
shit, right? And
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like in the way that the NBA is played right now, if you're an athlete, like you can just get up and down the court and just is reasonably coordinated and has like an up and down style of play, and like you play against second units a lot, like you're gonna put up points. Like in a league where teams are scoring 140, 130, yeah, you're going to have 12, 15, 18 point explosions occasionally. Malachi Flynn put up 50. I won't lie. Like
I think
Cam
another
Whitmore
player
has been
that
better than I thought he would be, for sure.
Gigi Jackson
He's been great.
has been great.
He's been really good. And it's interesting because, you look at a guy like Gigi and then that's why you think about those old recruiting cycles. It's like sometimes a guy is really freaking good for like his whole life, and then he goes to college for 1 year and everyone's like, this guy's trash now. DJ Wagner is a great example, right? DJ Wagner
Hmm.
going into college, top 5 recruit, right? 5-star recruit, top 5. Everyone loved him. Everyone loved his game. Had some concerns, sure. He goes to college, plays 30 games. He's terrible. Really inefficient, shot selections all over the map. Not a great playmaker. Defensively struggles. Okay. Kentucky guards are notorious for struggling. Like that entire
Hmm.
system is designed for them to struggle so they can get better. So now I'm curious and I'm like, could this be another Gigi Jackson situation with DJ Wagner? It's like, would you draft him? Like if he comes out, which I'm not sure he will, maybe he transfers, would you take a chance on him at 31? Would you take a chance on him? Would you trade for a 40th pick or whatever to get him? Because it's like this is the Cam Thomas situation. It's like these guys go late. Maybe they struggled, but maybe there's some retained value there. I don't know. I think the Raptors are not in a position. I think the Raptors have to bat on like massive upside with at least one
I
of these
think
picks.
somebody like is it Dove Carrington is have you seen his game?
A little bit, yeah. He's on my to be scouted list.
I like his game. I really like his game. Really, really.
Hmm.
And what about Jacoby Water?
Uh, he's currently 20th on my board.
Oh, okay.
Some people have him as high as 14. I don't know if I can get that high on him right now.
If
But
he falls,
again,
if he falls to us at 16 to 19, I'll take him and run.
so I basically, like, the way I'm doing this is I have a spreadsheet
Mm-hmm.
and I have basically it's like my spreadsheet is 12 games. So I made a mistake last year with Grady. I only watched 5 games and I was really
Mm-hmm.
pissed off at myself because I watched 5 bad games of his. 4 bad games, 1 good game, and I ended up being low on him. I also made the same mistake with Cam Whitmore. I only watched 5 of his games last year too, and I only watched seven of Brandon Miller's games. So I don't know
Mm-hmm.
why I ended up. But again, with Brandon Miller, like he struggled against better competition last year. So I watched a lot of really bad games from his.
With Brandon Miller, I followed him even before he joined college because he was in the same school district with my kids. So they kept telling me about him right from when he was way younger that this kid is gonna be great. So I was watching his high school games then.
Yeah. See, unfortunately, like most of the kids that like grow up with kids who are top 5 recruits, top 10 recruits, think those guys are going to be all stars. That just typically is because these guys at that level are usually like unstoppable. Like I
And
remember
big.
watching
Mm-hmm.
Javon Shepard, DeVoe Joseph at that level, like high school level, and
Mm-hmm.
they were like, "Oh my god, no one will ever be able to stop these guys. They're so great." Um, there were other guys too in Canada basketball that were like really that good, and then you see them go to the next level, and then they struggle, and you're like, that's interesting, because they were scoring 50 on us. Um, yeah. So, anyways, the way that I have it set up is I have a spreadsheet, and then every single prospect in the top 35, I have 12 games of theirs I have to watch.
Have you watched
And
Keleway?
no,
I like him too.
Kalel,
Yeah,
where? Yes,
yeah.
I have. Yes,
What do you think?
inconsistent motor.
Mm-hmm.
Really inconsistent, very invisible, and I don't like a guy who's 7'1" who's invisible in
Yeah,
college.
exactly. I think that is the problem, right? The drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem with him. He has a talent, but I don't know if he has a drive.
Yeah, I think those are the same questions that people had about Evan Mobley coming out, though, didn't they? That he gets invisible for a little while and he's not very assertive. I don't know. I think at that level you want players to be more assertive, but yeah, I like Yves Missy much more than him. I'm actually getting higher on Yves Missy than I am on almost any big in this draft. And the reason I just keep getting higher and higher on him is because, again, his age and
Mm-hmm.
the fact that he picked up basketball just a few years ago. And again, it might be another Pascal Siakam situation but he's just so much better than Pascal. At the same age, he's so much better than Pascal. But you gotta understand, like Christian Coloco, Pascal Siakam, these are multiple year guys in college. Like Siakam had
Mm-hmm.
multiple years, Coloco had 3 years. Again, Cameroon, okay, fine. But both guys had like delayed, like they picked up basketball late, but they stayed multiple years. With Yves Misi, like he's doing this in 1 year. He did his
Mm-hmm.
damage as a freshman, and he did it at Baylor, which is a
That's true.
crazy tough school to play at. They play a huge, like tough conference. I don't know, man. I think
Yeah, I watched some of his games this week, and I'm becoming sold on him too. I agree with you.
yeah, I think
And
maybe the
he's just been
Raptors
playing
are pretty
basketball
sold on him too.
for 3 years, right?
Yep.
And if you listen to Bobby today, I think you can kind of, we're not going for any shooter that can play defense. He was like, we're going back to way that now that the playoffs is coming, you can tell that those teams that play defense, they're the ones that are really doing well.
Well, yeah, I mean, like with between Yves Misi and Stefan Castle, Ron Holland, potentially even, Matas Buzelis, you can make a case that all those guys can defend. Even
Mm-hmm.
like Alex Starr, I mean,
Yeah.
imagine if the Raptors end up with Alex Starr at 6 and Yves Misi at like 18. I don't think that would happen, but like I'm just saying, like imagine those two guys.
Are you going to take two bigs? I don't think so. If
I
you
don't
take,
care. I
no,
would take best talent available. If Alex Starr is the best player at 6 and he's available, then you take him.
mm-hmm.
Um,
Hello, Jared McCain.
I liked him a lot. I didn't do the extensive scouting on him that I wanted to, but I did watch him during the tournament. So I only watched his tournament games and then one of his games from December.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't get to watch a ton of him, and I watched him basically in the context of watching Kyle Filipowski, but I liked him a lot. He was my favorite player on Duke this year.
I like him next to Scottie Barnes playing, hopefully playing with, replacing Gary Trent Jr. down the line, because he can really shoot the ball.
He can shoot. I liked his feel for the game,
Mm-hmm.
like the in between stuff. Like today was one of the worst Gary Trent Jr. games I think I've ever seen in my life, and it just reminds you of how useless he is when he's
Yeah,
not scoring. It's like he doesn't do anything. He's not doing shit on defense for you. He's not a good rebounder. He's not a great passer. He's not a good transition player. He's not a great athlete. He's not a good downhill guy. He's just a guy who takes shots. And then the nights that he makes them, he looks like he's a $25 million player. And then on the nights he doesn't make them, he looks like a G League guy. And it's like that level of fluctuation cannot exist for a player who's in your key rotation. Just can't.
I'm also gonna say I don't like IQ as our point guard.
Why not?
I
And tonight
rather
he
him.
struggled for sure, but like, why not?
I rather him play off ball like shooting guard.
He will. He will. I think like
Yeah,
when this offense sets up, you'll run a lot more through Scottie anyway. But that doesn't mean that like Scottie has to be your traditional point guard.
I agree. Yeah, I don't like Tijani Salah. I'll take him at 31. I'm not taking him with the top 20.
Well, I have him 17, and what do you not like about him? And how much have you watched of him?
I've watched a lot of. I don't like his defense.
I agree.
It-
He's
slow foot.
slow-footed
Yeah,
defensively for
yeah,
sure.
hmm
Does he remind you a little bit of Obi Toppin?
yeah,
Mm.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah, like a way less athletic Obi
I
Toppin.
like Isaiah Collier a lot.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another guy who was very, very highly touted coming into the college cycle and, struggled. I could see him
It's
being like
struggled
that
a lot,
big guard.
but when he came back after the injury, he played really well. So he ended the season really well.
He did. And I think like he did a lot for his draft stock because I was actually worried that, with the way he was playing, he might not come out. I could see him. Do you trust his jump shot?
I think he can compensate for that by driving to the rim.
See, the problem with the Raptors, and this is going to be a problem until they change their roster, is that driving is not as easy with Jakob
As yeah,
Poeltl, right? Like you're noticing
yeah,
like RJ Barrett seems a lot more efficient right
yeah.
now. Well, largely it's because Kelly Olynyk is standing on the top and Jakob Poeltl is sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
But once Jakob Poeltl comes in, as much as he's giving you offensively in terms of screen setting and offensive rebounding, and as much as he's going to give you defensively in terms of paint protection, which God, it has been 2 months since I've seen anyone protect the paint for the Raptors.
I don't like this guy, Kyle Filipowski.
Yeah, so I have a strong bias, as I've mentioned before, against tall white guys. It tends to be like my weakness. Every draft, I miss a tall white guy who's supposed to be good, but I can't see past all the busts of tall white guy past. But yeah,
Well,
I think his analytics are pretty good, man.
Klingon is good.
Yeah. I mean, how good though? So that's the crazy thing. It's like, would you take him top six?
If I draft Klingon, I'm gonna trade Jakob Poeltl.
There's no way in hell Donovan Klingon is going to be better than Jakob Poeltl for the next 2 years, man.
And I'm not thinking of the next 2 years. I'm thinking of the future. Because you just said
the next 2 years is the future.
Well, Rob Dillingham, I think his draft stock is going to be dependent on his height in the combine.
Yeah, I mean, we already know he doesn't have much of a wingspan. I have a feeling he's going to measure in at about 6'1.5".
I think
that's going to be.
I think it's going to be 6'6" on barefoot, then 6'1" with shoes.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with him, I watched him play in high school against a guy who was 6'2", and he seemed shorter than him. That's when the red flags went off for me. That was 2 years ago. Did he grow over the last 2 years? No idea. But if he didn't,
he can score, but his defense is not really good.
His defense is terrible. It's not even like
terrible.
you're being very kind. Like he does not care. Like he gets lost defensively all the time, and like with how complicated NBA offenses are getting, like you just can't. You can't get there. This year, Country Kong with another ridiculous take. This year, you're sleeping on Zach Edey. I'm not sleeping on Zach Edey, bro. I just don't think he's that good. But you know what? You're free to think he's that good, and I hope one day that Country Kong creates a Keontae George and a Zach Edey dynasty that can take over China.
If we forced to 31, I'm taking him. And
you would take him 31?
Yeah, I'll take him and call it a day. I'll take the risk.
If you take Zach Edey at 31, I will bet you any amount of money that there will be a player that is better than him picked in the next 10 picks.
Well, at least I know I have my pen protection that Jakob Poeltl doesn't have.
He's not Jakob Poeltl though, bro. Like you got to see how slow he moves. Like I'm willing to say he's a lot more skilled than I remember him being 2 years ago.
He's improved a lot now. Look at when he was in like 2-3 years ago compared to now.
Bro, he's also 22 years old going up against 19-year-olds on an average, like 19 and 20-year-olds who are like half his size. Like that matters, Like it has to matter. If Jahlil Okafor had played out all 4 years, I mean, he might have broken some friggin' records.
That's true.
This problem is like most players in college are not playing 4 years if they're NBA players.
I like Matthijs and Buzelis. Well,
I actually like him a lot too. Some people say he's 6'9". I think he might end up measuring closer to 6'10", 6'11".
Even if
he has like real guard skills.
6'8", I still like him.
True. Like I think he has some like serious guard skills, and he's like a very fluid athlete. I don't know if he really reminds me of Franz Wagner a little bit, but there's a little bit of that there. Yeah, I really like him. And actually, I really would not mind if the Raptors drafted him at 6. In fact, I think like right around 6 is where I start saying like these guys could be all-stars.
Mm-hmm.
Like Alex Sarr, Reed Shepherd, Topic.
I'm not big on research Shepard though.
What do you not like about him? Because I hear that a lot. Like he's very polarizing prospect. So like a lot of people they have him
You
like
know, it's considering going back to college.
he's going what?
Yeah, you didn't see a report today that he's talking to Kentucky. They're looking at increasing his NIL money to keep him.
Fuck. That
Yeah,
would suck.
but that would be so silly of him because next year's draft he's not gonna go top 10.
Yeah. I mean he does strike me as someone who might, but yeah, he'd be crazy too.
What do you think of Maxier from Alabama,
Don't know enough.
the point guard that is like Jalen Brunson, the one that made 15,000 3-pointers in last offseason?
Don't know enough. Haven't watched.
Adding to your scouting this year, I like him for 31, but I think the tournament helped him a lot. I think he's ranked between 20 and 30 now.
Yeah, I'm a little bit
But the 6-1 point guy, so if you're looking for height, then it's not your pick.
well, Alex Sarr declared for the draft today, FYI.
Yeah, it did, yeah, on ESPN. A lot of them declared today, Alex Sarr, Donovan Klingan, and the others.
Well, I'm kind of hoping this does not become a draft for bigs, given that we just traded for Kelly Olynyk.
There are a lot of bigs this draft, a lot.
Yeah,
But I think you want to get one, right? You need 3 bigs at least. Olynyk can move to the 4 in some games.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, man?
I'm gonna ask you one more player. What of Trey Newton? Is it Trey Newton, the point guard from UConn?
Okay.
The one that, what do you think? Second round?
I worry about the jump shot a lot, but I was thinking of point guards who maybe didn't shoot super well in the past. And
when you say the jump shot, making jump shot or not making jump shot, okay.
It's what do you mean?
He's one of their best shooter, right?
Who are you talking about?
The point guard from UConn, and is it Trey Newton? Trey Newton, the one that won the most outstanding player of the tournament.
He's not a good shooter.
I think he's a good shooter.
Is he?
I'll check the stat later.
Are we talking about the same player?
The
Tristan Newton.
Huh?
Tristan Newton.
Yeah, Tristan Newton. What did he show? What's his field goal? 3-point field goal.
Oh man, like I mean, he shot 32% from 3.
Oh, okay.
So not good.
Yeah.
Granted, he shot 36% the year before. I mean, there is potential there, but he's not a high volume 3-point guy, right? Like he only took 1.8 per game. Sorry, he took 5.5 per game. So I mean, 32% is not great for a guard in his 5th year. But yeah, he's got everything else. I would look at him like as an undrafted guy, because he was very productive. But yeah,
in this draft, I think it's gonna fall to the second round somewhere.
I don't know if he'll necessarily be a second round pick, but like if he's a late second round pick, like I don't know. It depends on how many guys stay in. Like right now, a lot of guys have declared, but there's always a chance that they're gonna bounce out. But yeah, like I mean, he had a 10.4 box plus minus. He was a really big part of why they were good. Definitely exiting college on his best year ever. Yeah, he was good. Yeah. Anyway, okay, cool, man. Thanks a lot for calling in.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Bye. Hey, Lane, man, what's going on? Long time no talk.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, man. Life's been busy.
Oh, that's cool. The Raptors are shit right now. So yeah,
Yeah.
not expecting anyone to be watching this. Anyways, we're talking about college basketball. What's going on? You always have some very, very strong thoughts about college basketball.
I do. I'm actually so happy that I don't look like a fool for being a homer for Bryce Sensabaugh, because he's actually somewhat panned out in the playing time he's gotten so far. So that's
He's
a
been okay.
decent take. He's been, I mean, he was supposed to be in the G League this whole year, and the fact that I think he's had like 3 or 4 20-point games, that's pretty good for a guy that's supposed to be G League bound all year.
True.
I'm super interested though in that 30 that Pistons pick, right? That's where I feel like this draft is gonna get make or break. Only because I don't know if that 6th pick is gonna be there, right? So I don't want to put too much stock in it right now and then be disappointed when we don't get it potentially.
Sure.
I'm not trying to speak bad things into existence, but I mean, if the NBA is rigged, who better to rig it for right now than the Spurs?
It's not rigged. And if they wanted to rig it, they rig it next year.
Oh, trust me, I know. And then the whole Pacers thing, like, who's to say they catch fire and now all of a sudden we have the 22nd pick?
No, not possible.
I hope not. But
no, you don't have to hope. It's not possible.
Oh, really?
Statistically, it's not possible for them to have the 22nd pick.
Oh, okay, well, a pick higher than a teens pick.
Hold on, let me just pull this up here. So, according to Tankathon, the Pacers currently are deadlocked for the 17th, 18th, 19th. They're deadlocked with the Lakers, Philadelphia, and they own the tiebreakers, if I'm not mistaken, over both those teams. So it is too late for them to catch Phoenix or Cleveland. So the worst that they can convey is the 19th pick.
Really? Did they? Am I dumb? Did they not change the rule to where it's where you finish if you're a playoff team? Like in the playoffs, that's where your pick lands? Or am I just stupid?
No, I think that has to do with the play-in. So if you, for instance, like you're the 7th pick, sorry, if you're the 7th seed, right? Technically, right now, you don't have a lottery pick, right? You're the 7th seed. But
Right.
if you finish outside, if you lose in the play-in, then you would have a lottery pick.
Right, but it's like...
But it doesn't apply to the Pacers because they're not in the play-in right now.
What was I guess the Miami Heat's pick was in the teens last year, even though they made it to the finals.
Yeah, but that's irrelevant. Where you end up is irrelevant.
Got you. I don't know. I don't know why I was thinking otherwise. Probably the NFL.
Probably.
Like that, yeah. No, but I'm really looking at that Pistons pick. And for me, what's really important, I feel like we can go and get a serviceable big in free agency. What's really important to me, though, is a bench guard. And a guy that's really stood out to me all year is Tyler Kolek from Marquette. He's a little bit on the older side, but I feel like a team like the Raptors right now needs that, especially if you're not going to get that 6th pick, because there's guys on this team that want to win now. They want to be fighting for a play-in spot next year. Like, if we're in the same situation we're in next year right now, there's going to be some unhappy dudes on this team. So I think bringing in an older point guard, a more mature point guard, a point guard who's controlled the rock on a top 10 team in college basketball the past 2 years could be really beneficial to the bench unit. I know it's not the highest upside. I know it's not the sexiest pick, but it's someone who can really control the pace when IQ and Scottie are off the floor, or he can run a bench unit with Scottie, play off ball, play on ball, super high IQ player. He doesn't have, like, he looks small, but he's 6'3", like 195. So he's not the smallest guy in the world. He's actually an above average rebounder for his size, and he averages 17 and 8 pretty much in college, right? So he does know how to dish the rock. He's someone for me to where if he falls to 31, 32, wherever the pick lands, I would take him no hesitation if he's there.
Do you like him more than Tristan Newton?
I don't know enough on Tristan Newton, to be honest with you.
Did you watch the Final Four?
I did a little bit. It's been baseball season, so I've been really heavy back and forth with baseball. Not like watching it, but like being at games, and all that. So,
Well, I mean, if there's a good thing for the Raptors, it is that there are plenty of guards in the second round that are worth looking at, including some explosively high profile, high upside type of guys who could slip a lot because of really poor freshman seasons,
right.
like DJ Wagner. Probably going to be in the later part of the second round if he comes out. I think he should just go back personally. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot. One thing that I'm noticing, like with this draft class, is usually when you get to like ranking prospects, when you get to like range 45 to 60, it's a whole bunch of like NPCs. Like it's like, what the fuck? I'm reaching hard now. In this draft, I got down to about 65 before I stopped seeing guys who could make it in the NBA.
Right. Yeah, there's names down here. You got Cam Jones, Jamal Sheed, Justin Edwards, PJ Hall. Like there's names at the end of the second round on the back end.
There are. And even a guy like Baba Miller, who I firmly always seen as an NBA player, even if it's not a good NBA player at this point, but like I watched a lot of him at Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Like my friend plays, there as well. And Dylan Jones at Weber State, that's an interesting player for me. And he's a second round pick too. So there's some guys in the second round where I'm like, damn, the Raptors are going to have their pick of all of these guys at 31, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be able to pick the best of that bunch. And the best of that bunch, in my opinion, is going to be a starter. Whoever it is, if you pick right, you're getting a starter.
Mm-hmm.
That's the type of talent I think is in the second round of this draft, because I think the second round of this draft looks a lot like the second round of most drafts. The first round of this draft does not look like the first round of most drafts. The second round of this draft definitely looks like the second round of most NBA drafts. It might even be a little bit deeper. So, I mean, like right now, I'm looking at the Ringers, draft board. You got Johnny Furphy in the second round. You got Bobby Klintman in the second round. Terrence Shannon Jr. at the second round. There's a lot of seniors. A lot of international guys.
I would not touch him with a 9.5 foot pole.
Do not touch who?
Terrence Shannon Jr. That's a guy I would not because of his on the court play, but his off the court play. He just doesn't strike me as someone the Raptors would go after, especially after they got rid of what's his name? Oh shoot, the kid who went to Ole Miss.
Terrence Davis.
Yeah, after they got rid of Terrence Davis for an accusation, there's no way they touched Terrence Shannon.
He was suspended because he was charged with RAP.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not a good look right now. Like things are not pointing the way they should for him, is what I've heard, and it's kind of sad that Illinois let him play through the whole season when that was going on. Like I mean, not to go political or PC, but accusation's an accusation. But when the facts are not on your side, like what are we doing here?
Are the facts not on his side?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's going to be crazy when it comes out. I wouldn't touch the kid. I mean, to be honest with you, even though he's a senior, if he didn't have this stuff going on, I think he's a lottery pick. But I think it pulls down his draft stock because of what's going on. And then when it hits the fan, he's just going to be undraftable if it comes out before the draft. Yeah, I wouldn't touch him. Kid's super talented, though. Hell of a talent.
I think it's just I watched him before he transferred, and was he playing Texas Tech?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely saw an NBA player in him. That's why his name jumped out. I didn't know about the on-court stuff though that he's going through. So that sucks.
Yeah.
Did you say Tyler Kolek was the guy at Marquette that you really like?
Yeah. If we were gonna go for, he's not, like I said, he's not the sexiest pick. It's not the highest upside. But if we're like, hey, we want to try to make a play-in/playoff run next year, I think he's the guy who can come in and be your eighth man, be a point guard for you off the bench, give IQ a breather, high IQ. He can play off ball next to Scottie. He's an okay shooter. I think he was like 37, 38% in college this past year. But I mean, the kid's just worked his butt off his whole life. He's actually a pretty decent finisher at the rim. And then what really jumps out to me is like he can play in the NBA. Is he's 6'3", 195. Like he's not TJ McConnell is what I'm trying to say. And not no disrespect to TJ McConnell because he's a hell of a player.
I like TJ McConnell.
I love TJ McConnell too, but he's not a small white guy that's just going to run around and take mid-range shots. He can run an offense. Like, I would compare him to like an Aldi, not even Walmart, but like an Aldi Rondo, like very very value brand Rondo, but a very very value brand Rondo is still a decent player.
Bro, like a very value brand Rondo who shot 39% from 3 last 2 years.
Was it 39?
Yeah. He
Okay,
shot 39.8% as a junior and 38.8% as a senior, and not on crazy volume, but like on decent-ish volume.
Yeah, give it, dude. If he's there at 31, give it to me. It is. I get it. He's a senior. It's not the sexiest pick, but if we're really serious about trying to be good next year, he's a guy who could step in right away and really make a difference.
Yeah, and he had a 10.1 boxes minus in the Big East, which is not easy to do.
No. Good conference.
Yeah, and 60% true shooting. Really low turnover rate relative to his assist rate. Per 100 possessions. So just he's
really
26.8 points, 13.5 assists, 8.6 rebounds per 100 possessions. So those numbers are insane.
He's a plus rebounder too for his size. He really gets dirty on the boards.
Yeah, I wonder about his shot release. I watched 2 games of his so far. I wonder about his shot release, like how fast it is for the NBA level. I mean, if guys like Emmanuel Quickley are struggling to get their shot off, if Grady Dick is struggling to get his shot off at the NBA level in terms of speed of release, he's slower than those guys to me. So that to me is like the worrying part. But hey, if the Raptors, I don't know about 31 though, dude.
You think he might go higher or he might go lower?
It depends on who stays or who leaves in the draft, but I have a feeling this guy could go. He seems like the quintessential 28th overall pick.
I got you.
Yeah, he's like that guy that like every really, really, really good team is going to look at as like an ideal third point guard who can play right away.
I see Denver. I'm listening in my head. Da 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 da.
With the 28th overall, 29th overall pick, the Denver Nuggets select. Yep, I get it. It makes sense. It makes perfect sense. He is a Denver Nugget for sure. But one thing I will say is Denver has tended to draft younger. I mean, they didn't last year with Julian Strawther, but they drafted Peyton Watson and Christian Brown, and neither of those guys were seniors. Christian Brown wasn't a senior, right? Christian Brown is younger. So, yeah. I gotta check that. Christian Brown is 22 years old. So how many years did he play? He played 2 years, right? I think he was a two-year guy. Pretty sure.
I do believe. Can you hear me? I'm so sorry. My mic just went out. I got a call.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, no, he was. Oh shit, he was a 3-year guy. Christian Brown played 3 years at Kansas. So it was only Peyton Watson who played the 1 year. So they have tended to go for older guys. I stand corrected.
I just think they're going to put IQ around Jokic any way they can find it. And I think he's, like you said, like I hear it now. So, but...
Okay, so if you have the 6th overall pick, who are you picking? Let's say the Raptors. Actually, fuck it. Let's say you have the 1st overall pick, because I think the Raptors are more likely to move up to 1st or 2nd than they are to stay at 6. So
yeah,
let's say you get the 1st overall pick. You're the Toronto Raptors. What are you doing?
Can you not like? I feel like it's impossible just not to take Alexander Sarr with that pick. Like, I feel like if you don't take him, I just don't like. I can't make a good argument for taking Topic. I can't make a good argument for taking yeah. Thank you for that. I was gonna butcher his name. I can't make a good argument for taking Dillingham. Like, I can't make a good argument for taking any of those guys. Like it's just one of those things where a few years ago, where the Magic kind of had to just bite the bullet with Paolo and say he's just the best player available. It is what it is. We're going to take him.
But he wasn't. He wasn't the best player available. Chet was the best player available.
That yeah, okay, yeah. I'll give that. But yeah, I
He
mean,
has been like 1 year of Chet. Like the 1 year Chet experience is telling me right now, Chet Holmgren is a better player than Paolo Banchero, despite having a 1 year late start on him.
no, but I would agree with that. But I feel like it's kind of almost, I don't know. You just have to take Sarr, I think. And I think at the end of the day, if he starts out as your sixth man, great. And then if he looks really good, then that just gives you the okay to move on from Yock. Because if he goes crazy, like in his first 2 years, there's going to be no reason to keep Yock in town and this kid on the bench. But like I said, I just don't see the reasoning to take Topic, Dillingham, Shepard, the other kid. I don't want to butcher his name out of respect, because I feel like if you take them over him, then it's a waste of a pick. You might as well just trade down at that point. And if you get the number 1 overall pick, you might as well.
But why is he such a clear path number 1 overall pick? Like, I mean, what does he do that, like, you know, Marvin Bagley didn't do? I mean, if I'm telling you right now, 100%, every GM right now, I take Marvin Bagley in a time machine as a prospect, and I put him next to Alex Sarr. Marvin Bagley goes number 1 20 times out of 20. 20 times out of 20.
I think the difference between this kid and Marvin is this kid's defensive instincts, right? He's not calling him, I'm not calling him wimpy, but he has the instincts where it's like he doesn't have to try. He just reacts, right? I'm not calling him wimpy, but you know how Wimby has like the instinct to where like he knows a guy's on the weak side, pass goes to weak side, bam, he's jumping to block. He doesn't have to try. He just reacts. I think this kid's the same way, to where he just reacts. Like he's a student of basketball, to where I think Marvin Bagley was more of an AAU guy. Highlights. He was built off highlights, built off of hype. I think Alexander Sarr is kind of built off of feel.
And I get Marvin Bagley had an 11 box plus minus at Duke. Okay, he averaged 0.25 win shares per 48, averaged 35 points and 18.6 rebounds per 100 possessions with 1.4 steals and 1.5 blocks.
And that's what's so hard to argue, because if Sarr went to Duke, what would his
he shot 62% from the field. What do you want from Marvin Bagley? There's a reason he went number 2. I'm not saying he should have gone over Doncic, but like we rewrite history so often with players who don't work out. We say like, oh, it was so obvious. I'm telling you right now, Marvin Bagley's resume is so much better than Alex Sarr's.
I think at that point it's just the makeup of the player. How bad do they want it? How bad are they going to put the work in?
Sure.
You know, what is their drive?
And also, like, do they end up in a shit organization like Sacramento for a few years, right? Like, I think that matters too. I mean, like, when you watch Marvin Bagley play in a pickup run, he's still very, very, very fucking talented.
Yep.
It doesn't translate to on the court because he doesn't process the game enough. You don't process the game fast enough. But I'm gonna tell you, talent-wise, Marvin Bagley's a really talented player.
Oh, extremely. So fluid. So I mean,
but so was Andre Blatch. I mean, if you ever watched Andre Blatch play, like he was so freaking talented, but it's just it never converted into winning.
Right.
And to me, it's like I don't know what my bias is against Alex Sarr. Does he remind me of some player that failed? Does he physically remind me of a player? Does he aesthetically remind me of a particular player that failed? Do I just not trust this prototype? Do I not feel like I mean, the question to ask, and it's like $1 million question to people, or it's worth asking. If he's so good, how is there any debate who the number one overall pick is in this draft? The draft is so fucking weak, right? I'm trying to tell you, like literally, I'm talking almost any top 3 player. We're talking Evan Mobley, James Wiseman, Marvin Bagley, DeAndre Ayton. Any one of those guys would be number 1 in this draft. 100% they would have solidified themselves. People would be like, thank God that DeAndre Ayton is in this draft. Otherwise, there'd be no talent. Like, LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards, like literally, I can go down this list of players that run. Marvin Williams would be number 1 pick in this draft. There's so many guys who would go above him. So the question then becomes, at 7'1" with a 7'6" wingspan, no excuse for picked up basketball late, none of that shit. What is the reason that he has not definitively What is it that even subconsciously that is making people a little uneasy about him? Because I'll tell you that there is a copycat tendency. I'll tell you right now that if Jalen Brunson and the Knicks do really well in the playoffs, it will boost the stock of every undersized guard.
Yeah.
Subconsciously. Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren being the two best rookies, like this rookie class technically includes Chet. This is the best rookie class in 30 years. So which player in this draft has the most in common with Wemby and Chet?
Yeah.
Alex Sarr. It's an obvious one-for-one fucking comparison. The reason that I am a little bit cautious is because it strikes me as a little too similar to the Andrea Dirk stuff.
I got you.
A little too similar to the every time Dirk Nowitzki does well, we have a 7-foot white guy go in the lottery and fail because people see what they want to see. And I tell you, if you look hard enough, you will see Yao Ming in Yi Jianlian. If you want to see it, you trick your eyes into seeing that shit.
Yeah, that's not how I see when I watch him. That's a crazy comparison.
Of course.
Yeah.
But, or like, if you want to see, Andre Kirilenko and Jan Vesely, you can.
Yeah.
Like my sister knew Jan Vesely. We watched him play. I never saw like a high-end lottery player. I saw maybe a second rounder in that guy. But that guy jumped out of the gym one time and people were like, oh my God, 6'10". He can jump like this. And they just saw what they wanted to see. Sheldon Williams, another great example of a guy who shouldn't have gone top 5. He goes top 5. What was going on in the league back then? Ben Wallace. So I'm just saying, like, we have a tendency to copycat, So again, Victor Wembanyama doing well and Chet Holmgren doing as well. It's got everyone thinking, what's our answer to this guy? And the truth is, maybe you don't have an answer to those guys because maybe those two guys don't come around every fucking draft cycle. Every draft cycle is not going to have a Fred VanVleet. So Fred VanVleet doing well does not mean that you need to start taking a swing on every 5'11", 6 foot, senior. It just doesn't mean that. It just means that, like, and I think like that's where like people have to start looking at joint probability and the statistical. The odds of any event happening are not overly influenced by another event happening. So, for instance, Victor Wembanyama doing well does not necessarily make it more likely that a 7'1" athletic shooter from France that comes after him will do well. But it does make it more likely that someone will think they will do well. And that's where I think we have to be super careful with Alex Sarr. That's it. That to me is it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I would agree.
Because if Wembanyama had failed, like let's just say he had failed the way Scoot Henderson is failing, right? How would we even be talking about Alex Sarr in the top 3?
So yeah. I mean, here's my honest opinion. If the Raptors somehow get the number 1 overall pick, by the grace of God, the basketball gods shine down on us, and we get the number 1 overall pick, pre-draft interviews are going to be so important to me because I have so much trust in Darko and Jama.
There isn't a number 1 overall pick in this draft. That's what I'm trying to say. There isn't one. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a guy who's a 6th overall pick or a 7th overall pick, and you're going to pay him like a number 1 overall pick, and he's going to be seen as a number 1 overall pick, and he's going to have all the pressures of a number 1 overall pick, and it's not his fault that he's coming out in a draft where he's going to be compared to Victor Wembanyama and Blake Griffin and Zion Williamson, who were real number 1 overall picks. So that's the point. Like, that's tough for me. That's a tough sell because you have a guy. I don't want the number 1 overall pick, believe it or not.
Neither do I. But hypothetically, if we get it, I want the hardest worker because I believe in the development system that these guys have in place here. Like, just talking to my friends who are different NBA fans. Like I have a friend who's a Heat fan, Thunder fan, like just everything. Cavs, just talking to them and them talking to me about Grady Dick and how it's like, wow, man, if this team would have drafted him, he'd be in the G League the rest of the year after how he performed at the beginning of the season. Or if this team drafted him, man, he'd be screwed. And it's like the Raptors drafted him. He struggled at first. He put the work in, and look at him now. It's not perfect, but if you showed me Grady Dick at the beginning of the season and Grady Dick now, it is two different players, right? And he had the gene to work hard. He's a hard worker, right? My worry is I don't know enough about these guys personally,
Mhm.
so I think whoever sits down, if we were to get the number one overall pick, like you said in the scenario, I think whoever you sit down with and they sit there and they not just preach work ethic, but they show you work ethic. They show you where they were at 2 years ago. They show you where they're at now. I mean, you have to take that guy because the development of this organization right now is top tier, and you're gonna. I mean, you gotta put some stock into it. Like Darko has done a phenomenal job. John has done a phenomenal job. Hell, even the G League coaches. I mean, it's not turning into wins in the G League, obviously, but they've done a phenomenal job with guys like Javon Freeman, Liberty, Grady Dick going down there, right? I mean, I believe in the development of this organization over everything, which is something I haven't been able to say in like what 3 to 4 years,
Mhm.
you know. So yeah, I think that's what it comes down to me is like character makeup at the top, um, more than anything. I know Alexander Sarr because that's all I've looked into. Like I've watched tapes of other guys, but like he's the deepest I've looked into. So, and I think, I mean, you can call me a casual on that because I probably am, but I think almost every other NBA fan would agree. Like out of Nikola Topic, Alexander Sarr, Zachy, whatever, yeah, you get his name. Like all those three guys, probably Alexander Sarr is the most mainstream out there. But I mean,
Yeah.
whichever one is the hardest worker, whichever one is the hardest worker, give them to me because if they're going to listen and they're going to be coachable by this coaching staff, I want them because I've seen what this coaching staff has done to Grady Dick and I love it. And if they can do that and pull the best out of one of these three guys, if we were to
Mhm.
get the number one overall pick, give it to
Yeah.
me. Give it
I
to
don't
me.
know. I evoke the love of the game clause. To me, it's like when. Why do you think big men are so often the biggest busts?
Potential, potential,
People see what
and
they want to see. People see what
yeah,
they want to see. The vast majority of people who make decisions about players are short, or
right.
not short, but relatively short. They're under 6'2". When a guy walks in who's 6'10" or 6'11", he towers over you. There is a command of respect when someone is tall versus when someone is short. See, you don't see the potential in Fred VanVleet, so he gets looked over. You don't see, so often when you see guys who made it to the end of the round, there's always something objectively physically wrong with them. Oh, Jokic is too fat. Draymond Green is too short. Fred VanVleet is too short. You don't usually see like bouncy 6'8" wings being picked, late, or he's too old. There's always some sort of defect or perceptive defect about guys who slip. And the same thing in opposite is said about guys who are too high. There's nothing wrong with them. They are blemishless. And it's like you start to get a halo effect around guys like Alex Sarr, where yeah, when you put it down on paper, 7 foot, 7'1", 7'6" wingspan moves like a gazelle on the basketball court. But bro, he has absolutely everything in common with Anthony Randolph, in my opinion, as a player. Like, I watched Anthony Randolph. I held a lot of hope for Anthony Randolph for a very long time. If you ever watch Anthony Randolph, you see a fluid athlete, 6'10", can block shots with the best of them, crazy potential, sometimes could shoot, sometimes couldn't, just insane. Andre Blatch. Like I've spent an entire life waiting for these unicorn like 6'10", 6'11", 7 feet tall guys who can do everything to put it together in a way on a basketball court where they have a consistent motor and they can really impact winning. More often than not, it doesn't pan out. So for me, the only thing concerning about Alex Sarr is that he's not a definitive number one overall pick. And
Yeah.
to me, it's like if you are 19 years old, you are 7 feet tall, you are on the heels of Wemby. When I say on the heels of Wemby, I mean you're literally coming up at a time when he is blowing up. You have a 7'6" wingspan, and you can shoot, and you defend like a crazy person. And they're comparing you to Wemby and Evan Mobley, both guys who are loved by the analytics community. And you are not the number one overall pick consensus, according to every mock in the world, according to every analyst in the world. My point is, what are we not talking about you that we will be talking about in 3 years? We're going to be talking about he didn't want it enough. wasn't smart enough, didn't read the game well enough, didn't work hard enough, wasn't strong enough. What is it about you that is going to stop you from being successful? Truth be told, I don't see anything stopping Nikola Topic from being successful. I don't see anything stopping Reed Shepherd from being less so.
Yeah,
I have fewer questions about Nikola Topic than I do about Alex Sarr. You want my honest opinion? That's my honest opinion. I think
I agree with you.
Ron Holland is probably, in my opinion, the most sure player. Zachary Sachet has probably the highest upside. Nikola Topic is probably going to be the most guaranteed starter level type player. Reed Shepherd is, to me, going to make it. Like, I don't know how he's going to make it. I don't know what. It's not a situation where he just comes into the league and fizzles out in 3-4 years. I think he's just going to be. I think he's going to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like just a guessing game at the top this year. I mean, you could like, I don't know. I feel like you have to put a disclaimer on it because they're all extremely talented, but it's going to be a classic case of like who works their ass off the most. And I hate to like boil it down to that because I get it, like raw potential, fundamentals, variables go into it, like how this dude grew up learning the game, all that goes into it.
Mhm.
But I feel like this is a classic case of a bunch of Pascal Siakams, like who is going to work the hardest, who is going to completely revolutionize their game. And that's if I had the number 1 overall pick, that's who I would take, is who's the hardest worker out of the top 6, and just go with it and trust it, because it's like you said, it's so unsure right now. It's extremely unsure. I mean, you just gave a great case for 3 different guys, and if I asked you which one you would take, you'd have a hard time deciding one because all 3 of them sound so good right now, and there's no consensus number 1.
I wouldn't have a hard time.
Really,
It's
you take Zakier.
I would take Zachary Sachet.
Yeah.
Right now, I would take Zachary Sachet, but the problem is, here's the problem. The reason that I don't want the number 1 overall pick is because I actually don't think that the best player in this top 10 is going to be the number 1 overall pick. More likely than not, it's going to be the 6th overall pick, or the 7th overall pick, or the 9th overall pick. I don't like. There's something really stupid about the draft where every pick, first, second, third, gets picked relative to all the picks that were picked at that position in years past. And so if you believed, in Damian Lillard's draft, that Dame was the best player in that draft, picking him at number 1, him coming out of small college, being somewhat of an undersized guard, it was going to be really hard. It was going to be really hard because he didn't have the numbers, he didn't have the age, he didn't have all that stuff. Steph Curry coming out of Davidson, again, small college, undersized guy, not very athletic. How are you supposed to pick Steph Curry over the guys that went above him? How? How do you justify it? How do you justify it to your fan base? This is what I mean. Like, sometimes it's really interesting to be in the later half of the lottery.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to be 6th. I want to be 4th. I want to be 3rd or 4th in this draft. That to me would be like the best place to be, because it hopefully means that somebody picks Alex Sarr ahead of you, so you don't have to pick him. And then
There's pressure. Yeah.
There's less pressure on that player, less pressure on you, and by the way, less of a cap hold as well. So I think that would be a good thing. Unfortunately, again, if you do pick first, you have to pay that guy like a 1st overall pick, even though he's not going to play like a 1st overall pick, and he's never going to be a 1st overall pick.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's going to be overpaid. It just means you're gonna pay more than you need to for someone that you usually don't have to pay that much to. And
exactly.
Yeah, and he's going to unfairly be compared to Victor Wembanyama for the next 3 years. You know what I mean? And if it's Alex Sarr, he's naturally going to be compared to Victor Wembanyama. They're going to be like, he's good, but he's not Victor Wembanyama. Try dealing with that psychologically as a 19-year-old every single day, hearing questions about Wemby and how you can be as good as Wemby and what it's going to be like playing with Wemby. Like, you just be in a giant shadow. I don't know.
It's so crazy. There's 3 prospects from France projected in the lottery. That if that's not a ripple effect from Wembanyama, I don't know what is. Like, not saying,
of course it is. And I mean, like, even
crazy.
like even last year there were two French players picked in the lottery between Bilal Koulibaly and Victor Wembanyama, and it will continue. Even Wemby's brother is currently projected, he's barely played basketball in his whole life. He's currently projected as like the 26th overall pick in 2026.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I thought he was younger than that.
No, he's not.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So I don't know. Anyways, all right, man. Thanks a lot for calling. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Have a great night.
Yep. Good night. Okay. I realize in all of this that we forgot the post game, so we will get to the post game.
For you personally, but obviously defensively the team was a little challenged, and Darko was saying that maybe the playmaking wasn't as on point as he would like to see it. What do you take away from that?
I think it was, interesting. I mean, they're a good team. I mean, they were moving the ball. We were getting there. I think our first and second efforts were good, actually. But, when they just kept going all the way into the shot clock and then somehow would find, an open three.
In terms of the ball movement stuff, was there anything they were doing that was kind of like you had a lot of advantage when you drove to the paint? Was there anything they were doing in terms of cutting off opportunities, not just for you, but generally for your ball movement?
No, I think, with them, they're really aggressive defensively. So you have to know how to pick your spots. For me, luckily I've just had the fortune of just playing against them so many times, playing against them in the playoffs and stuff. So I have a lot of, film to watch, but just they're really aggressive, really good defensive team. They switch up coverages, whether it's switch heads, trap, zone, everything. So you kind of just gotta try to make a quick read. And I think we had a lot of good driving kicks. I think we could add some more, but we didn't make shots that we would normally make. I mean, I don't know how many threes Gary made today, one maybe, but that's just not that's not normally what we do. So I'm sure on Sunday we'll be better.
Kind of looking at a higher level, just because next game is the last game of the season, 82.
Mm-hmm.
What stands out to you about your time as a Raptor this season so far?
I've had a lot of fun, just being here, playing here, just everything in general. Whole organization just, is bigger than basketball for me. So I've really enjoyed my time here so far. Obviously, I hope to, be here for a very long time, and just to see the guys and see, especially our core guys, been able to play together a little bit. Just seeing some of the success we had, some of the things we need to get better at. Just looking forward to getting into the summer and working with those guys and coming back stronger next season.
And then when you say getting better, what area stands out to you with this team that you would like to see more developed going into next season?
Well, I think we just need more reps. We need reps. We need a training camp. We need just time to gel together and continue to learn each other, because I feel like once we have that time and we figure it out, we'll be really good.
So just defensively, when you don't have Jakob, or how difficult is it to protect the rim, protect the paint, and still kind of find a way to get to the shooters that Miami can put on the floor?
I thought from the start of the game, Miami did really good job of establishing the balance of attacking the paint and making our defense collapse. I don't think that we did good enough job of staying in front of the ball. In our rotations, they were not really good. Communication piece was not there in the first half. They opened up some pretty easy shots for them and allowed them to find the rhythm early in the game. On the other side, I thought that our ball movement whole night was not what it needs to be. We had only 10 assists in the first half, and when we try to play that way, we learn very quickly that that's not sustainable and that's not good for whole team. So ending up game with 23 assists and 17 turnovers is not who we want to be and how we want to play.
What was the message in the locker room post-game?
Message in the locker room post-game is don't take anything for granted. You're 20 years old, you're 23 or 25 years old. Do not take anything for granted. I understand we are not in playoffs, we're not in the play-in, but this is NBA. You're playing in the best league in the world, and everything matters. Nothing changes from me since day one until the last second of the last game. Everything matters. You gotta have that type of mentality, because that's how you get better. That's how you improve. I have nothing to object to our guys the way we played against Brooklyn, and that was 48 hours ago. Competitive and staying in the game for 48 minutes with great effort. Not just effort of playing hard, but effort to do what team needs to be done. So that's the message, and we gotta come back on Sunday and play much better.
I know you weren't pleased with the ball movement in general, but RJ had 35 points tonight, really the only guy who really got it going offensively. What did you see from what he was able to do within the way the offense was working?
Yeah, he was aggressive. He was able to get to the rim. I thought that all threes that he took were built, came from wide open shots, good possessions. He was able to get to the free throw line. He grabbed 11 rebounds as well, but 35 points and again 3 assists. I wish he had more in that column there. And I see RJ as a scorer, but also I see him as a playmaker, and he needs to do a better job for us of connecting with other guys, because he can touch the paint anytime he wants, and when defense is collapsing, he needs to make good decisions of connecting with teammates.
Thanks for watching the Toronto Raptors YouTube channel. Check out our latest videos and subscribe for more.
Missed it. Okay, I fundamentally agree with that. I think as much as RJ did put everyone on his back tonight, there were a lot of times where he needed to trust his teammates. The problem is, and Darko's right, but also RJ's right, which is some of those teammates were trash tonight. And I think it's a little bit of a tough thing to tell somebody to trust players that objectively are playing horribly. And so this is where I think, bad teams like the Raptors do develop. You have to stick with a process that isn't working just because it is the process. More often than not, over the last few games, the Raptors have been lower in the assist column. Every single game, we're seeing a lot more ball stopping, a lot more guys going one-on-one. And while it is not as egregious and not as concentrated and not as inefficient and not as mind-numbingly stupid as it was last year, it's approaching more of that territory of my turn, your turn basketball, which is not what the Raptors wanted to do this year. So, it does hurt that some of the biggest catalysts for that ball movement are not on the team right now, or not playing. Jakob Poeltl, Scottie Barnes, these are the guys who facilitate generally and create that. So it has come down to, it's the Emmanuel Quickly show, it's the RJ Barrett show, it's the it's the whatever. Little John, I'll let you on for 5 minutes. I am fading fast right now, dude, but what's going on? Any quick thoughts?
Yeah, sorry about that. I had to come on because I saw you were on. I just wanted to. You made a great point about you don't want to pick a player first overall in a weak draft, because you don't want to put tough expectations on them. Kind of like Anthony Bennett, right?
Sure. Yeah, Anthony Bennett, Andrew Wiggins, Andre Bargnani. There's a lot of those guys.
I've been thinking about that, because for some reason I think the Raptors are going to get the first overall pick. I don't know why, but I'm a huge Reed Shepherd guy. I've been on the Reed Shepherd bandwagon since December.
Okay.
I think he's by far the best prospect for Kentucky. He's way better than Dillingham, and he's gonna have a much better NBA career. So I would much rather pick him 6th or 5th than 1st, because now all of a sudden he's gonna be the craziest number 1 overall outcome in NBA history. A guy who wasn't even ranked right in high school goes number 1 after one and done college year. That's insane.
Ja Morant wasn't super highly ranked in high school either. Worth noting.
He wasn't, but
he did have a crazy college career. But so did Reed.
So did Reed, but he also had 2 years, and then also he's just an insane, unbelievable athlete. Reed is he's gonna be a little things king. So we don't want to draft that guy first overall. But another point I wanted to make was this G.G. Jackson situation. This just shows how crazy the NBA draft is, and how much of a it's just it's a shot in the dark. He was flagged as a bad character kid, and everything I've seen from him is so wholesome. I don't know if you saw he's been playing the drums with the church group I saw like there was a video about that on Twitter today, like that Shaq interaction on TNT, and apparently this guy was picked in the second round behind guys like Jalen Hood Shafino. Just it's just
Well, Hood
unreal.
Shafino was picked in the teens.
And I can't imagine. I can't believe that happened. That guy was picked 30 spots ahead of him. So many smart people were saying that Gigi Jackson was a first round pick.
Right.
And again, that's the draft. Some bad character allegations, and all of a sudden you're in the 40s. So like that's why the interviews are so important.
It also is a big fuck you to analytics, right? I mean, he was a negative 0.1 box plus minus guy at South Carolina.
He was also 17 though.
That's fair. But yeah, like I mean, he struggled. I mean, let's not mince. Let's not pretend it's all character stuff. It's not like this was a guy who was like dominating college. He didn't dominate college at all.
He didn't. But
like let's see what his numbers were. I mean, he shot 32% from 3, 41% from 2. He shot 38% from the field in college. Per 100 possessions, he averaged 29 points, 1.6 assists, and 5.2 turnovers. That is the worst assist to turnover ratio I think I've ever seen in my life. Okay, so again, I'm just saying, like, the numbers. Okay. But he wasn't.
It's disgusting, but it's not hard to imagine him, as a sophomore and as a junior, putting up insane numbers.
My point is, like, what is the gap between him and someone like DJ Wagner right now, in terms of like how much DJ struggled at Kentucky? Yeah, like DJ Wagner, for all he struggled, I believe he's also a negative box plus minus guy right now, right? So
this guy's 6'8", and is a very, very just insane skill set.
True.
But I understand what you mean. I just wanted to.
Personally, I saw Gigi Jackson as a late first round pick last year. I saw him as a late first round pick. So I did not see him as a lottery pick or anything like that. The fact that he has played as well as he's played so far is very impressive for sure.
It is impressive, yeah. I'm not saying like I had him,
But he's also putting up big numbers on a team that is losing. He is also putting up big numbers on a team that is
he's still the
terrible.
Youngest guy in the NBA. I'm just trying to point out like how much of a crapshoot this is, and how like the last caller, he pointed out how important the interviews are, and that's something I feel like Masai has absolutely nailed. Like everyone who he's brought in is just an unbelievable character, guys. Like think about Jakob, think about Pascal, think about OG, think about Scottie.
Mm-hmm.
Fred. He was undrafted, but like everyone, these are all like great guys. DeLon Wright, these are like unbelievable guys. Like this is the stuff that like you can't lie in an interview, and clearly Masai has he's really good at reading guys.
You can, but let's take a look at this for a sec. Actually, hold on.
Well, you can't lie to certain people. Certain people can see through it, I guess. But again,
in theory, yeah. Let me just pull this up, make this bigger. Okay, so this is Gigi Jackson versus Grady Dick. Statistically speaking, I mean,
he was almost born in 2005. Like he's actually like insanely young.
True. So let's just take a look here. Per 100 possessions. Okay. So I mean, granted, these are both two guys who've been given a lot of opportunities to fail. They're both two guys who technically have negative analytics. Grady's just been a lot worse.
Yeah. His October through December, January was like literally worst player in the NBA. It's like Malik Williams. If you're really down on Malik Williams, right? So is everyone else. It was like that level.
I feel like it wasn't, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't that level, but
it was pretty bad. So in terms of per 100 possessions, GG Jackson literally does everything better than Grady except for steals and assists per 100 possessions.
This is no knock on Grady. Like I'm absolutely 100% fine with the pick. This is just more like how much of a crapshoot the draft is.
Oh, for sure. 3-point percentage, 2% gap between, the guy who shot 32% and the guy who was a sniper. 2-point percentage, dead even, which is shocking, actually, given, the GG Jackson's younger, but has probably greater athletic skills than Grady.
Yeah, that's the key, like, most impressive part of Grady's rookie season. The 2-point percentage is unbelievable for a rookie, especially a white shooter.
Yeah. Usage, GG Jackson has been higher, so 24% usage. So I mean, like, the usage being higher actually makes his stats even much more impressive. So yeah, right now, if I'm looking at these numbers, having only watched 2 GG Jackson games all year, in fairness, I would tell you definitively he had a better rookie season than Grady.
Yeah, I'm
easily.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Again, by the way, are you any lower on Triple J? Jaime Jaquez? Has the hype has it worn down for you, or?
Jaime Jaquez?
Yeah.
Fuck no. Did you watch the game tonight?
Well, everyone on the Raptors, this is the Raptors G League team, so I'm not.
It's not the G League team. Emmanuel quickly played. RJ Barrett played. Grady Dick played. Bruce Brown played. Kelly Olynyk played. They played everybody except for
Kelly Olynyk is like at the rim, so I can't take anything serious right now.
But Jaime Jaquez did his damage not at the rim. He did his damage at the point of attack. He got past
Jaime Jaquez
everybody.
is older than Anthony Edwards by 5 months.
I think you might be over obsessing over age a little too much, maybe.
I might be, but
he's also an NBA rookie. Like, here's the thing: you cannot.
He's really bad on defense.
Jaquez?
Yeah, he kind of has this strong, stout build, but he's not like, he doesn't move laterally side to side. He's not going to be guarding ball screens.
He's better than RJ Barrett.
Sure, but
defensively,
can he get to the rim like RJ Barrett? Is he as athletic as RJ Barrett?
No,
he's not.
But that's the thing. Is he a better playmaker than RJ Barrett? Is he younger than RJ Barrett? Like, I'm not saying he's better than RJ Barrett. I'm not even saying he's gonna be better than RJ Barrett. I'm just saying the fact that there's even a conversation and he's a rookie, like, he's been really good. Like, Jaime has been.
A conversation. Yeah, it's not a conversation. But I don't. Are you like still low on RJ? Like, I'm actually kind of moving around.
I'm not low on him at all. I thought tonight was a really good game, but I think tonight was a really good game in terms of, like, showcasing his limitations as a playmaker as well. And also, like, do you win when a guy does well? And it's like, it's hard to blame him for how his teammates played tonight because his teammates were trash. But
wait, do you think Grady is going to be better than Jaquez? Or
yes. Long term, yes.
Who would you rather have, Jaquez or Pods?
I'm not sure.
Would you rather have Jaquez over either Thompson Swim?
No. Fuck no.
No. I'm trying to gauge your Jaquez interest because I'm telling you he's not that good.
Dude, he's a rookie who plays in a winning system. He has the same true shooting percentage as RJ Barrett, just an FYI. He has more win shares this year than RJ Barrett. Would you believe that? Actually, here's a fun fact for you. I don't think he's going to be
a starter on a championship team. Is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Or
check the stats here. He has more win shares than RJ. He's played 1,000 more minutes. He's also played like 2,000 minutes as a rookie, dude. Like, you realize how hard it is to play that many minutes for Eric Spoelstra. He's managed to be a positive defensive boxes minus. You think he's a terrible defender, but he's actually been pretty okay on defense in terms of the on-off splits there, dude. In terms of 3-point shooting, that's where he's struggling right now. He's shooting 32% from 3. But that's an adjustment, bro. Like, he's an 80% free throw shooter. He will come around on it. I have a feeling that he will be a very good starter on a championship team. I think you're
Really?
very much underrating him. Yeah.
I think the footwork, the fancy, the split throughs, the pivots, like some of that stuff early on, like when you're watching young guys and you're getting excited about them. I think that kind of took you know, a little took hold over people. Like I'm not saying he's gonna be a bad player, but I just think as this people were talking about him as like some insane asset. He's not an asset to that
You don't think
degree.
he's an asset?
To that degree.
Okay.
Um,
All right. So let's gauge your Jaime Jaquez interest. Let's say the Raptors have the 18th overall pick in this year's draft. Would you trade the 18th overall pick for Jaime Jaquez?
oh yeah, I would do that. But again, I wouldn't trade the 10th overall pick in this draft.
Okay. I would. And maybe
I
that's the
don't.
gap.
Yeah, maybe 10th, maybe up to like 8th or 9th. I'd take about 6, 7 guys, maybe up to 8 guys in this draft over him. Rob, he's 22.
Irrelevant. Also, where would Grady go in this draft? I think he would go top 5. There were a lot of people who were trying to pressure him to not come out of the draft. According to Michael Grange's 28-minute long article, there were a lot of people who were trying to pressure him to not come. Okay, so here's where he stacks in the Heat hierarchy of win shares. He is 4th on the Heat in win shares, behind only Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Duncan Robinson. That is insanity, man. In terms of defensive win shares, he is 3rd on the Heat. He is ahead of Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, Hayward Highsmith, Tyler Hero. Okay, not a lot of great defenders there, in fairness. The fact that he's been positive defensively at all is ridiculous.
He guards up, like he guards 4s, but he can't guard 1, 2s, and 3s. Like he can guard a 4.
But why? But I feel like you've been watching Scottie Barnes too long, bro. Like, on what planet is it normal for a rookie to be able to guard 1s, 2s, and 3s and 4s? Like, shit.
You're right, but again, he's not a 19, 20-year-old rookie. He's a 22-year-old. I guess.
Once again, I think you're over obsessed with this. First of all, just because you're 22 does not mean that you have less potential than someone who's 21. It doesn't work that way. It never works that way.
The growth curve is a lot smaller. Like it's.
I don't believe that at all.
Historically, it is.
There's a bias there, and the bias is that because the vast majority of players historically, before NIL, whatever, the vast majority of players who are really good prospects, right? They usually end up in the league faster. And the sooner you end up in the league, the sooner you have the jump that the league gives you, right? So if a guy, let's say, for instance, Scottie Barnes had stayed at Florida State for 4 years, right? He'd be a worse player today than he is as a floor. Let's say we build a really alternative reality, and let's say we split Scottie into 2 Scotties. So now there's 2 Scotties, almost like a glitch in a video game. One of them stays at Florida State. One of them goes to the NBA draft and is drafted by the Raptors. I'll guarantee. Actually, let me give you 3 Scotties. The case of 3 Scotties, and this should be the subject of an athletic article. Scottie number 1 goes to Detroit as the number 1 overall pick. Scottie number 2 goes to Toronto, plays under Nick Nurse, under a competitive system, goes to the playoffs, etc. Doesn't have the pressure of being the number 1 overall pick. Doesn't have to carry a trash roster. Doesn't have to be in that terrible organization. And Scottie number 3 goes back and plays 4 years under the Seminoles under Leonard Hamilton. Raptors Scottie will be ahead of those 2 players for sure.
By far, yeah.
Detroit Scottie will be ahead of Seminole Scottie.
Yep.
However, at the age of 25, now let's just say, for instance, that in this weird simulation, all 3 of them get poached by 3 different versions of the OKC Thunder. So let's say Toronto Scottie plays 3 years in Toronto, and then he is traded to OKC. Detroit Scottie plays 3 years in Detroit, and he's traded to OKC. And Seminole Scottie plays 3 years under Leonard Hamilton and is drafted to OKC. Now, OKC has all 3 Scotties. Within 3 years, they will all be relatively similar players, even though they're starting out at completely different places. That's my point. Just because, like, you have to think of growth like this, in my opinion. You cannot think of growth the way you're thinking of growth, because you're thinking of growth like Jaime Jaquez, because he's 22, like, do you know what I mean? Like he has less value than every 22-year-old in the world. And that's just not true. If you compare him to players who have been in the league for 3 years and are 22, like you said, oh, he's older than Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards was drafted in 2020, bro. He's had 3 years of NBA training, 4 years of NBA training now. Right?
Okay. All right. So let me put it like this, because I'm not saying he is a worthless asset. Like, he's clearly an asset, right? You should be excited if he's on your team. I'm just saying, being 22 years old, the nice pivots and step throughs, it's not as exciting as if he, or it's not as exciting if he was 19 doing those pivots and step throughs and turnarounds and DeMar DeRozan like moves. It's a little different. Like, it's kind of like
he has a lot in common with Luka Doncic. Like a really shitty version of it. I get it. But he has a lot in common with him athletically. He's a big, sturdy, strong guy who sees the game at an incredibly good pace.
The pace, right? Yeah.
Like he plays on his own pace. Like tonight, I watched him be better than every player on the Raptors.
Oh, I didn't watch the game tonight.
Okay, so that's the point. He was the best player on the Heat tonight.
See, I didn't watch the game at all tonight. I saw he had 18 points. Can I ask you something?
He also had 9 assists.
Yes,
and I think the 9 assists were the most impressive thing, because he got into the middle of the floor and the Raptors had absolutely nothing they could do, and he shredded them. He found shooter after shooter. He found cutters. He looked like not a rookie at all. He was incredible. And honestly, when I was watching him play, I was like, I hope 3 years from now Grady sees the game this well. That would be incredible.
I think Grady sees the game. He just can't dribble.
I agree. I think Grady sees the game very well as well. But I think with Jaime, there's like there's advanced like understanding of how to position his body and how to attack like gaps and how to see the game. And again, I'm saying like he's done this at the college level for 4 years, right? It's the same thing with Trace Jackson Davis. Now you might see Trace Jackson Davis as an older guy, just as most people did. But I guarantee you, by the time he's 25, he's going to be ahead of a lot of guys that you are probably much higher on right now that are 19. And he's going to continue being higher than those guys. It's a lot of guys who are older, that are perceived to have less upside. But consider Fred VanVleet. Okay, here's the question. Did Fred VanVleet grow after 22? Did DeLon Wright grow after 22? Did those two guys, both guys, older guys, did both those guys not improve more from 22 till where they are today in their 30s than James Wiseman?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, yeah, but wasn't James Wiseman so much more exciting than Fred VanVleet?
Well, the thing with James Wiseman was that he played 2 college games, and if he would have played in a full season, he would have been the 8th overall pick. So that's kind of he kind of slipped through the crack. But can I ask you a better question? Who do you rather have? Jaime or Dyson Daniels? Because I know that's gonna be
Dyson.
That's my point. I don't even think Dyson's a unbelievable asset. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I mean. Like,
the difference here is when all things are even, then you start looking at the splitting hairs of athletic potential, health history, characteristics, age, all of these things. But age is just what that is. It's just one part of a very complex equation. You cannot just automatically say because a guy is 18 or 19 years old that he's automatically better than someone who's 20 or 21. And you can, because again, there's an oversampling bias here, because guys who are typically older tend to be more successful, because the ones who were successful at a younger age were put in positions to be older. Like there's an entire book about this, which is very interesting, by Malcolm Gladwell. But the point is that we tend to, like, have you heard of this, where the vast majority of international teams are made up of guys who have like earlier birthdays? Have you heard of this?
No, I've never heard of this.
Yeah, and so basically it's because at a young age, like when you're very, very young, let's say, I don't know, let's say you have a kid and I have a kid, and my kid is born in December and your kid is born in January, right? Well,
Hmm.
if it's happening in Canada and not in the United States, where the cutoff is usually September for school years, if it's happening in January, my kid at the age of 6 is going to be in the same class as your kid at the age of 6. But the problem is, my kid is going to be 6 through the entire school year, and your kid's going to be 7 for the
Yep.
entire school year, which means that for the first 4 to 5 years of their school year, your kid might be like 6 inches to 8 inches taller than my kid.
Yeah. 11 months of mental brain
11 months of
development.
mental growth and 11 months of physical growth, strength, and
But
these 11,
the older
but
you get,
the
that
less
gets
that
cut off though.
matters. I
Yeah.
agree. But up until the age of 17, that matters so much.
Sure.
A really great, and you know, the first thing I learned about sports when I was growing up was, if you can't hang with kids 2 years older than you, forget about pros. So that was always a litmus test. If you are in grade 6 and you cannot play with kids who are in grade 9 who are reasonably good at it, you're not going to make it. Like, you have to get
Yeah.
better.
The
And it's the same thing with grade 9 kids. If you're a grade 9 kid and you can't hang with the grade 12 kids, you're not going to make it into the pros. You're not that good. And that always comes down to and that's where this age thing comes up, because it's like you see a guy like Jaime Jaquez, not he's a double fucked over, right? Number one, there's less of a potential thing because it's a known commodity. There's less also assumed about how good he really was, because for the vast majority of his college career, he spent dominating against guys who were physically younger than him. So therein lies the question of, like, how do you fairly assess him relative to a Gigi Jackson? Now, from everything you said about Gigi Jackson, I'm assuming that if you had the option right now, you would pick Gigi Jackson over Jaime Jaquez. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And therein lies the point. I wouldn't.
Because you are less less, you rather not take the chance of, hey, this guy is going to develop into what Hawkins is right now, and what he could develop into in the future. You rather not take that chance, but I would. I think
I'm
I would
saying
take those
that the
3 years.
statistical chance of Gigi Jackson becoming as good at 22, so within the next 3 years, as Jaime Jaquez is today,
or by
is hard.
or by the time he
It's
gets to
hard for me to
25.
rationalize that he would be that good. But by the time they're 25, and that's the whole point, once you get to the NBA, whatever development you have gets accelerated, in my opinion, which means that it's usually better to get there sooner. For guys who are capable of doing it, it's better to get there sooner, especially if you can go high enough. It's better to get there sooner, especially if you're mentally ready enough to deal with the temptations of being a pro. From a purely basketball point of view, NBA teams on average are vastly better at developing talent than college teams, and are vastly better at developing talent than international teams. The NBA is the best at this for the most part, the best of the best, right?
Financial reasons.
On average, though, that does not mean that the Detroit Pistons are better at developing than, Olympiacos, because they're not. Right. So there are outliers to every and that's also not to say that the Detroit Pistons are better at developing than Kansas, because they're not either. And therein lies the conundrum of coming out into the draft and then maybe being drafted really high to a terrible team like the Houston Rockets under, Steven Silas, or the Detroit Pistons under Dwayne Casey, and then just, losing, elements of your career. But I also think of like the G League Ignite program or the Overtime Elite program, and I'm like, man, those are two programs that really deprive players of their growth and upside. So the question then becomes, when you spend time in a suboptimal place for your development, what happens to that development? Does it get suppressed? Does it die? Or does it basically lie dormant until something can awaken it? I think it lies dormant until something can awaken it. So I think that both Gigi Jackson and Jaime Jaquez are both in excellent positions with excellent coaches. I think both coaches are incredible. I can't say enough about either or.
Taylor Jenkins is absolutely underrated.
Super great coach. Jenkins is a great coach. The Memphis Grizzlies are going to be good next year by most accounts. So we'll see if GG Jackson continues to have an opportunity. I assume he will, right?
By the way, you like clinging for them, right?
Memphis?
I've seen a lot of people mock that.
I think that they should look into I understand why the Klingon thing makes sense, because there's an automatic like Steven Adams Klingon, like it makes sense.
And
Like
Jaren
you lost one, you get one. But I actually think Jaren Jackson is better at as a 5. And so personally,
Fair.
like I'm not really sure that putting a 5 next to him necessarily helps. Especially one who doesn't necessarily shoot super well. So I don't know. I think the best player for them would be Matas Buzelis. That's who I would pick if I was them.
Can I make one more point on the Hawkins front?
Sure.
So listen, a lot of people don't like Gilbert Arenas. He's says the
Can't stand him.
Some of the crazy stuff. I actually enjoy him from a comedic standpoint.
I mean, if he wasn't being dead serious about like Euros ruining the NBA and Jokic being the worst MVP, fuck that guy.
Yeah,
it's so ironic that he would say Europeans don't play defense, when I can't think of one European who plays less defense than Gilbert Arenas did as a player. He was an atrocious defender.
I missed his generation, but yeah, I don't think he was known for defense. But so my point was, he says some crazy stuff, but he does say some really, really interesting stuff, because I think he tries purposely to look at stuff from a different perspective.
That's putting it lightly. Yeah, sure.
Like he tries to So, anyways, he said something really interesting about looking at guys comparative to like their age. So like if you compare Jaime Jaquez to guys who are 22, right? Like Evan Mobley, Scottie Barnes.
It's not a fair comparison though.
But
you're talking about 3 years of NBA training versus not 3 years of NBA training. It's just not. It's not a fair. It's not a 1-for-1 comparison.
You're right. But then if you look at GG Jackson for an 18-year-old, he's literally the best 18-year-old in the NBA. But if you look at it just strictly from that POV, you would probably value GG as a higher asset. But now there's a whole different conversation. But
I wouldn't, but I know most people would, because most people assume that growth is linear or constant, and I don't. I've seen a lot of players regress. Right. I've seen a lot of players have like really great rookie seasons and have terrible sophomore seasons and then never ever do anything. What was Tyreke Evans' value after his rookie season? Probably really high, because he had 5.1 win shares. He won Rookie of the Year, and people were people were enamored with 25-5, but his team was losing and he didn't play any fucking defense.
And it was very entertaining.
It was entertaining, but ultimately that's the point that I'm making, is like, you can't just say, okay, well, 5 will turn to 10, will turn to 15, will turn to 20. It just doesn't work that way. It works that way in video games. It doesn't work that way in real life. Real life growth, progression happens at weird times. Fred VanVleet is a better player this year than he was 3 years ago. Fact. And he's 30 plus years old. DeMar DeRozan is 33. He's a better player at 32, 33, 34. I don't know how old he is at this point. He's better today than he was 4 years ago. I'll guarantee you that much.
He's 34. Yeah, you can make an argument his best 3 seasons of his career are the last 3 years.
Right. And that's my point. So what happened DeMar is a great example.
He's an insane,
he's a relentless worker, but there's a lot of guys, bro. There's a lot of guys who work really hard. There's a lot of guys who work really hard. Pascal Siakam works really hard. Fred VanVleet works really hard. Damian Lillard works really hard. Jason Tatum works really hard. A lot of these guys, I promise you, most of them are not going to peak at 34 or 33. What changed? What was different about DeMar? San Antonio.
I don't know.
San Antonio was different, bro. He got I don't want to say terrible coach. I don't want to speak bad about Dwayne Casey. I don't think he got the great grower of the game, grower of the mental game advantage from Dwayne Casey.
Yeah,
but he definitely got that from Greg Popovich. Playing under Popovich in that system made him a better decision maker. I promise you his decision making sucked as a Raptor. Like he got assists barely from like handling the ball a lot, but I never saw him as an advanced reader of the game. One guy I saw as an advanced reader of the game in Raptors history was Tracy McGrady. Very good reader of the game. Doug Christie. I know a good passer when I see a good passer. DeMar was not a good passer as a Raptor. Now
he is.
he's a great passer. He's a great playmaker.
Really underrated as a passer.
And that in itself has negated some of the athletic decline that he has suffered. And of course, he's put off some of the athletic decline he's suffered by just taking care of his body and being really in shape and, just generally having very good luck with his health. So you look at guys like that. Look, Thaddeus Young. Thaddeus Young is a great example of someone who had a peak at 30. Thaddeus Young peaked from 31 to 32. As a player in Chicago, he peaked in those years. Statistically, he's the best version of himself at those ages. So Thaddeus Young at 18 was a better asset than he was at 22. But Thaddeus Young at 30 was a better player than he was at 25. Like, it's all over the place. You need situation to matter. You need role. You need all these things, right? Like all of these things. And sometimes it comes down to a skill being unlocked, like Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez's peak was in his 30s. He peaked as a player in his 30s. Nets Brook Lopez was not a better player than Bucks Brook Lopez.
I agree. Because of the defense.
So it's the defense. It's the shot diet. It's all of it. So again, and there's so many guys in league history when you look back on it, their best season is 23, best by far. They peak at 23, and everything from that point is downhill. And then there are some guys who are barely scratching the surface at 23. It depends on when you picked up the game. What I will say is that by the time you hit 27, almost all of this equalizes out. So think of it like this, and this is the way I would cap this conversation on this. Potential to me, I mean, maybe not to you, but to me is like this. Every single year, okay, let's just say this is your potential in this glass right here. This is all your potential, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I am the potential God. So every year from the age of 6 to the age of 27, you come back every summer and I give you a little bit of it and a little bit of it. And you never know when I'm going to give you a lot of it or when I'm going to give you very little of it or when I'm going to refuse or when you're going to have an injury and you're going to miss a year and a half. You never know. But up until the age of 27, I'm willing to pour a lot or very little, and you never know. And that's the point. Because, Anthony Davis, how much did his potential go up when he had that massive growth spurt? He retained all the guard skills, and now he's a fucking 6'10" guy with crazy athleticism. How much did OG Anunoby's potential go down with that injury at Indiana? All of these things are like, it's just all over the place, right? And so, like, what I'm saying is, there's a chance that Jaime Jaquez just hasn't gotten a lot of water yet. And there's a chance that this summer he goes to the potential gods, and the potential gods are like, shit, bro, you finally made it to the NBA. Nice. Here's the fucking full glass right here. And he comes back next year and he's in conversation for MIP.
No, but there's absolutely
you don't know that. And that's my point. And you don't know that Gigi Jackson goes to the potential god next summer and they give him droplets. And now we're having a completely different conversation. You have to factor in for a level of unpredictability when it comes to potential. It cannot be as simple as 19-year-old automatically has more potential than 21-year-old. Because right now, Scottie Barnes has a crazy amount of untapped potential. Crazy amount. For a 22-year-old, I can never compare him to a 22-year-old like an Anthony Edwards. People always say, oh, Anthony Edwards is younger than Scottie Barnes. I'm like, but bro, like Anthony Edwards' game has less development room to go than Scottie Barnes, in my opinion.
I'd agree.
Because Anthony he's there. He's there. Athletically, he's there. What does he need to develop?
His biggest issue is his
decision making,
which sometimes can't be developed or isn't developable.
It's okay though. It's not transcendent. Like, but with Scottie, it's like there's entire chunks of his game that are just missing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like he can get better at like 150 different things, and that's what makes his potential so scary. So it's like with Scottie, with his work ethic, and his, development curve, and the fact that, he transitioned from more of a connector big to a, predator wing later in his career, I could see Scottie having jumps in his, in his growth as a player up until the age of 27. So this, jump that he took this season, some people are like, oh, well, maybe this is the big jump. And it's like, maybe this is the mini jump before the big jump. Or maybe this is the mini jump before a bigger mini jump before the biggest jump. And 3 years from now, we're talking about a guy who might be a top 10 player all time. I don't know. All of this is unpredictable, is what I'm saying. There's some element of predictability in it. What I will say is being a really productive rookie on a winning team is never something to scoff at, whether that be Herb Jones or whether that be Jaime Jaquez. And I will tell you, when Herb Jones had the season that he had for the New Orleans Pelicans, everyone said, oh, well, of course he's playing that well. He's 22 years old. Same shit. This year, watch Herb Jones play. Look at the development in his shooting. Look at the development in his playmaking. Herb Jones has been legit fucking amazing this year. And he's showing things that he didn't even think about showing at 22. That guy could become one of the top 4 to 5 small forwards in the NBA by the time he's 28, if he keeps going.
No,
and I
right.
promise you, he was a second round pick.
It's a crapshoot.
It's a bit of a crapshoot, but there are certain things that definitely go into how much of that potential juice is left. And I just think it's independent calculus. But what I'm saying is, when you just factor it out by vertical, age, blue bloods, school, won an NBA won an NCAA championship, got bounced in the first round. I don't care about that stuff. That to me is a part of a very, very big equation. And I just think that it's very lazy when people say, well, this guy's the youngest player in the draft, and so he should immediately go above this guy who's 22. Like, if you watched Trace Jackson Davis in college and didn't think that guy would be a starter in the NBA, you're nuts. You need to check your fucking eyes. That guy was obviously going to be a starter, or at least a high-level rotation player. I feel the same way about Jaime Jaquez. And this year, I feel the same way about Reed Shepherd. Granted, he's younger, but,
Mike Bibby? Do you see Mike Bibby?
In Reed Shepherd?
Yeah.
No.
Who do you see?
I see Fred VanVleet.
I mean, he's way more athletic than him. So
I just see a perfected version of Fred VanVleet that I don't hate watching play basketball. So
one that wouldn't take a contested 30-footer.
Oh, he'll take a contested 30-footer. He's just a better shooter than Fred VanVleet, so he'll make it. That's the difference. Yeah. I had no problem with Fred VanVleet taking contested shots if he was shooting 38 to 42%, but he's not. But yeah. Anyways, man, good chatting as always. Love the back and forth. That was a great combo. Yeah. All right, man. Take care. Peace.
Take care, man.
Have a good night. Bye. All right, and it is 2:22 a.m. and we are almost 3 hours into this live. Don't ever tell me that I don't take this channel seriously. I definitely do. Coming this Sunday will be our first mock draft video, or Monday. I think Monday will be our first mock draft. Maybe we can make a routine of it where every second Monday leading up to the draft, we can do a mock draft. I think that would be a good idea. So we'll figure that out. Anyways, thanks a lot to everyone who stayed with us. 191 people at 2:22 a.m. Even if I factor out the 25 of you probably fell asleep half an hour ago with this on, is very humbling and very nice. And thank you for that. Yeah, one more game to go. See you guys on Sunday. Peace.